The village elder's house had a large room set aside for meetings. Today it was packed. On one side, more than 30 villagers were squeezed together, glaring at us. On the other, it was just my father and me. I clung to his hand and kept my eyes on the floor. The looks they gave me were full of hatred, some even outright murderous. My father must have felt me tense up because he pulled me behind him, using his body as a shield. This was the second time I'd gone through something like this. First was the merchant caravan, now the entire village. I honestly had no idea what I'd done to deserve this much hate. I'd never hurt any of them. The only one I'd fought was Trent, and that was self-defense. Maybe my appearance scared them. Maybe my little display of magic did too. Either way, it all felt painfully unfair. The village elder looked between both sides and cleared his throat. Ahem. Today's meeting is to address everyone's concerns. First, Randall, as representative of the villagers, speak your piece. Randall was a fat man with a jaw-wrapping mustache and the attitude of someone who thought he was better than everyone else. His clothes were as worn as the others, but he carried himself with smug superiority. Village elder, Randall said, we came here for 2 reasons. First, Sanders should not have so much land under his name. As a village, it should be allocated to those who actually use it. Letting a man with a monster for a child control that much land is unacceptable. He'll use it against us hard-working human villagers. Randall, shut your mouth, my father roared. Call my daughter a monster again, and I'll rip your damned throat out. If I hadn't been hanging on to his arm, he would have launched himself at the man. And if he did that, these people would finally have the excuse they wanted to strip us of everything. Silence. The village elder slammed his cane on the floor, his gaze turning icy. Randall, I told you to voice your concerns, not bully a young girl. Say one more word like that, and I'll hand your entire property over to Sander. Village elder. Randall yelped, face flushing red. He shot me a hateful glare instead of looking at my father. I still didn't know what I personally had done to him, but he clearly decided I was the enemy. Randall, the elder warned again. The fat man snorted and turned back. As I was saying, he shouldn't have so much land to hold over the village. Our livelihoods are in his hands. I also wondered how my father's family had ended up with so much land, especially when it didn't answer to the village elder. That land is not something I can take or give away as I please, the elder replied. If I seized it, I'd be punished by the king. That land belonged to Sanders' grandfather and was granted by the previous king himself. Whether you like it or not, the Cerelia family is a knight family in name. The words hit me like a thunderclap. I had never known we were technically nobles. It made me wonder why we lived all the way out on the border, but looking at the scenery around our home, I could kind of understand. Randall's expression shifted. For a moment, he actually looked afraid of my father. Dad gave him a smug little smile, and I couldn't help pumping my tiny fist behind his back, cheering him on in my head. But Randall's fear vanished the moment his eyes landed on me. Fine, the land can't be touched, but the girl is too dangerous. She can already use intermediate magic at her age. What if she goes on a rampage in town? She needs to be restrained. So you're an idiot, my father snapped. My daughter used magic to protect herself. She was minding her own business until that brat tried to publicly execute her. Are you saying she should have just sat there and let her head be cut off? She's inferior to us humans, so why not? She should bow her head like other demis and do as we say. Randall spat. Say that again, my father growled, taking a step forward. I grabbed his arm tighter. Father, calm down. He's trying to make you hit him. If I hit him, there won't be anything left, my father muttered. Want to test it? Randall. The elder's cane hit the floor again, but this time he didn't follow up with any real threat. His earlier words about giving away Randall's property suddenly felt hollow. Village elder, you see this, right? Randall said quickly. Not everyone in the village is willing to let something like that wander around freely. We don't feel safe. As village elder, you must find a solution. He was grinding his teeth, clearly desperate to call me worse names. I had tried to stay quiet, tried to keep my head down, but there was only so much I could take. I've gone out alone for a long time, I said, lifting my head, and not once have I stepped into the main part of the village, just so I wouldn't cause trouble for people who dislike me. I thought that was the best way to avoid conflict. But Mr. Fatty here seems determined to change that. He keeps pushing like he wants me to set his house on fire, just so he can learn what it means to really anger me. If I wanted, I could act like the child I am and throw a tantrum because people are bullying me. Maybe I should take Trent's place as the village bully instead. I'm sure that position is open. I could start with everyone in this room. Enough, the village elder barked. Faith, I know you've stayed away from the village, and I'm sorry your first real visit ended like this. But to make such threats. So he was going to take their side after all. Threats. My voice shook. Then tell me, old man, what exactly have I done wrong? What did I do to make these people hate me? Why? Just because I look a little different, am I treated like this? I speak the same language. I'm probably more intelligent than half the people in this room. Can you answer me that? The dam in my chest finally broke. Tears spilled down my cheeks as my father scooped me into his arms. Anger, hurt, confusion, it all came pouring out. I just want to know why. What I had done to be treated like I was less than human. This, the village elder faltered. He knew the reason, and we both knew it. There was only one. Because monsters shouldn't have the same rights as humans, Randall said coldly, finishing the thought for him. I stared at the faces around me, suddenly feeling very tired. This was the reality of being a demi-human. The same ugly prejudice I'd seen on Earth for something as meaningless as skin color. Different world, same stupidity. My father's voice cut through the silence. Village elder, from this moment on, the Cerilia family has nothing more to do with this village. We will not step into the main district again. The tax on my lands will be raised 100-fold. I expected better from you. A collective gasp ran through the villagers. The truth was, we didn't need the village. We could manage on our own. But the elder clearly didn't like what he heard. Bang! Sander, stop right there, he shouted. You can't raise the taxes that high. It will stir unrest. Do you want to cause an uprising? My father snorted. An uprising? My wife alone could burn this entire village to ash. What makes you think any of you can threaten my family? Wasn't this meeting called because you fear my daughter's power? Then what about mine? I'm the one who's held off beast tides more than once to keep this place standing, and this is how you repay us. Village elder, I said I expected better from you. You look kind on the surface, but you're no different from them. Now, if you'll excuse us. Sander, stop, or you'll be banned from ever stepping foot in the main village, the elder shouted, trembling with rage. He might have been the village's leader, but he had no authority over my father's land, and he knew it. My father just laughed. Fine by me. I'll be evicting all the farmers from my land immediately. You and your villagers can find a new food source, or try cultivating land outside the village, away from my family. Oh, except Finna. She may stay. She's always treated us kindly. And with that, he turned his back on all of them, holding me close as we walked away. It was my 12th birthday. 5 years had passed since that village meeting where my father and I walked out, leaving behind an enraged village elder and a room full of terrified villagers. For the first year and a half after that, they tried to manage on their own. Some even snuck onto our land to steal grain and ended up being sent home in boxes. My father was extremely territorial. A few of the village guards eventually quit and came to beg him to take them and their families in. Since they'd always treated us well, my father let them move into some of the empty houses near us. From what I heard, the main village slowly tore itself apart. Two factions formed and argued almost daily at the elder's house. One group wanted him to lift the ban on our family so they could use our fields again. Without our wheat, a lot of them simply couldn't feed their families. Trent was released from prison around that time too, though I doubt he was happy about it. My father later told me they found his body in the forest. That, of course, caused another uproar. Some people tried to pin it on me, even though I hadn't seen him once since that day. Others believed someone had killed him out of anger, blaming him for everyone's suffering. In the end, the village elder had no choice but to come to my father and beg him to let the villagers use the land again and lift our banishment. By then, it was too late. Father had already made deals with the merchants, so they would come directly to our land to trade whenever they visited the area. At that point, It was essentially two villages side by side. One was slowly starving. The other was growing. My father became the elder of what is now called Cerealia Village. He officially founded it and sold plots of his land to the villagers who had always treated us kindly. In our village, discrimination is enough to land you in jail. We converted some wheat fields into residential areas, but there was still plenty of cultivated and uncultivated land left. Our harvests were stable, and everyone living under my father's banner was kind and well-fed. I'm also an aunt now, which is kind of hilarious when you remember I'm only 12. My brother married the girl who used to secretly watch him work in the fields. Her family had been on good terms with us from the beginning and were among the first to move to our new village. They now have a baby boy named Leo. Even with a wife and child, my brother hasn't changed much. He still comes home with random shiny things and hands them to me with a straight face. I still don't fully understand why, but I've given up trying. His wife, Rachel, is a gentle, warm-hearted girl and spends a lot of time with me. We're technically family, but I also see her as a friend. She does have a funny habit, though. Every night she insists on polishing the scales on my tail. At this point, it's become a routine. I don't really mind. My tail looks glossy and pretty thanks to her. As for me, I've grown into a fairly cute girl, if you ignore the fact that my chest is only just starting to bud. My wings are much larger now, and I can actually fly when I want. Unfortunately, my height hasn't changed much since I was 10. I basically look like a very mature 10-year-old. Still cute, just short. I'm guessing it's a race thing, and that I'll hit a bigger growth spurt later. I hope. My level, however, has slowed to a crawl. The stronger I get, the tougher the monsters, the harder the fights, and the more experience I need to level up. Right now, I'm only level 17. Name: Faith Cerealia. Age: 12. Level: 17. Race: Dragonkin. HP: 5500/5500. MP: Infinity. Status points: 40. Strength: 510. Vitality: 550. Intelligence: 510. Mind: Infinity. Agility: 510. Skill points: 15. Skills: Appraisal, LVL1. I still haven't used the Evolution Stone, but my mind's been made up for a while now. I decided years ago that I would evolve, and I've just been waiting until I was older. I haven't told anyone about it. I can only hope that after evolving, nothing important about me changes. Even so, I'm determined. If I can become a true dragon, my power should skyrocket. Somewhere along the way, I realized I've grown obsessed with getting stronger, but I can't help it. The day I leave on my own isn't far away. I already told my parents I plan to go out and see the world. My mother cried, and my father sighed nonstop for nearly 2 weeks before they finally accepted it. They know I need to live my own life. Mother keeps telling me to find a nice man and bring home some grandbabies. That's not happening anytime soon. I have this feeling I'm destined to be alone. By the time I even look old enough for a proper relationship, my parents will probably be gone. I hate thinking about it, but humans here live, on average, about 100 years, just like on Earth. Humans with high mana can reach around 150 if they're lucky and avoid plagues, illnesses, and accidents. All I can do is pray that whatever gods exist in this world give my parents long, happy lives. Since I've decided to evolve soon, I already picked out the place I'll do it. The stone says the evolution only takes an hour, but I'd rather be cautious. I found an uninhabited cave that cuts into a plateau deep in the forest. If something moves in before I go, I'll just chase it out. Once I set up a bunch of barriers, it should be the perfect place to evolve safely. For now, though, my mother is busy decorating the house and cooking snacks and a big meal. I've been banned from helping. Rachel is in the kitchen with her, working on the feast. Normally, birthdays are only celebrated when someone reaches adulthood, but since I'll be leaving soon to start my journey, they decided to celebrate now. When evening came, everyone sat around a large table my father had built in the yard just for this occasion. The spring air was warm and pleasant. I held my nephew in my arms, gently rocking him to sleep. He was adorable and already looked like he'd inherited my brother's good looks. Not that Rachel isn't pretty, but Leo definitely has that budding, strong jawline that screams future heartbreaker. Of course, I might be biased. I've always thought my father and brother were unfairly handsome. I don't know how long I'll be gone once I leave the village, or where exactly I'll end up. But I do know that no matter how far I travel or how long I'm away, I'll always worry about my family. I've promised myself over and over to come back at least every year or two, if I can. Maybe someday, I'll even figure out a teleportation spell, so I can return home in an instant. Their smiling faces are something I'll always miss. But that's life. I can't stay here forever. I need to see the world I've spent so long dreaming about. Which path I'll take or where we'll lead, I have no idea. I'll figure it out as I go. Life has a way of throwing you into unexpected places. I mean, I ended up in another world, didn't I? After an amazing meal, I sat by the campfire, staring up at the night sky and thinking about everything that had happened in these 12 years. Time really does fly. 4 more years until my past life's death anniversary, I murmured. Thankfully, no one was close enough to hear me. Whenever I'm alone under the stars, my thoughts drift back to Earth. I wonder how everyone is doing, even though I'll never know. This time, though, my melancholy was cut short when something thunked onto my stomach. I looked down to see a shiny rock. "Brother, HM, so happy you're speechless?" my brother asked, grinning proudly, completely missing my look of disbelief. "I'm wondering when you'll stop giving me shiny things," I said with a pout, though I was trying not to laugh. "What? You don't like it?" he asked, genuinely shocked. "But you always smile and say thank you when I bring you something shiny." "That's because it's from you. Of course I treasure it. But I never once said I love shiny things." Which was technically a lie, because right then every instinct I had wanted to squirrel that rock away with the rest of my little hoard. His cheeks went red. "Then give it back. I'll get you something else." "Nope. This is mine now." I clutched the rock to my chest and bolted, using that as my excuse. I really can't help it. I do love shiny things. Volume 1 end. Author's note. Hopefully this didn't feel rushed. I honestly had nothing else planned for this volume. Let me know what you think. Volume 2 starts tomorrow, and there won't be any big-time skips for a while.
Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
It has been a few days since my birthday. Everything is back to normal. I decided to spend the past few days attaching myself to my mother and helping her out with her daily chores, just in case something goes wrong when I evolve. I knew more than anyone that I was taking a serious risk. At least becoming a dragnoid would still allow me to turn into a human, or at least that is what is stated in the system. There are a lot of things that I'm worried about, like what if something goes wrong and I turn into a small lizard or some other kind of animal by accident and can never turn back. According to the system, such a thing would happen if I chose the dragging evolution path. But I'm going with the dragnoid evolution path, which is a humanoid race that can transform into dragons. I just hope I do not end up becoming a lizard man or something with a full dragon body covered in scales, but in a humanoid form. Not that there is anything wrong with such races, but just saying, I prefer the current look that I have now. As a dragnoid, I'm wondering just how cool my dragon form will be. I wonder if I will become a huge, massive dragon that would cause entire kingdoms to come at me with their armies. I could end up being a baby dragon that is small and cute as well, but who knows? "Mother, I'm going out," I called out as I finished putting my boots on. Dash. "Faith, be careful. If anyone from the other village shows any kind of hostility towards you, just beat them up. Do not let anyone look down on you." My mother has really become violent as of late. It seems she had heard some people talking badly about me in Wandermere village. Wandermere is the name for the village before my father split his land off from it and made his own village. While my family normally stays out of Wandermere, there are those who have family still living there refusing to move. It's not banned from assisting those in Wandermere either. My father is a good man and will help those in need. Of course, that need excludes certain families. I opened the door and headed out. Even now, as I am running down the street out and around Wandermere, I feel nervous. My hands are clammy as a thin layer of cold sweat is beginning to form on my body. But even so, it will not stop me. I have already firmed my resolve to evolve and hopefully grow stronger. I only wished I could have more information on what I was getting myself into. It's not every day one is able to evolve. Or, to be perfectly honest, I am not sure if evolution is even a thing in this world. I'm hoping to find out more about it when I finally venture out on my own. It didn't take long to get to the cave I have found. I stopped right in front of it, looking at the overgrowth that covered its entrance. The cave itself was somewhat hidden by tree roots. A tall tree grew on top of the entrance, and its roots hung down on its sides. Green moss and vines also lined the entrance, making it hard to spot. If I wasn't specifically looking around carefully for an evolution spot, I would probably have passed right by it without ever knowing it was here. The area of the forest I was in was at least 4 miles deep. Villagers would never dare come this far, and for good reason. While they would not be able to tell the levels of monsters, I could, and the monsters here were all around level 13 to level 15. With me being level 17, they were easy to kill or scare off. Only a few more aggressive monsters would actually attack me even though I am of a higher level than them. Not that anything could really hurt me unless it could send me flying with mana shield up or use an attack that is indirect. One thing I did find out was that indirect attacks do harm me, and by a lot. I kind of found out the hard way. I was fighting a pack of electric monkeys, and one of them casted an electric area of effect spell. While the initial attack did not do anything, when the electricity bounced off of something and then hit me, I received the shock of a lifetime. It was my own fault, though. I could have dodged, but didn't, thinking it would not hurt me. It was the first time I had ever lost over 100 points of health. I was finding it hard to understand how Mana Shield worked. It made me wonder how Mana Shield knows what attacks were indirect and which were not. I mean, when the electric monkey's area of attack first hit, the Mana Shield absorbed all the damage. My mana did not drop at all after absorbing the attack, but once the electricity bounced off something, it became indirect and harmed me. It made me wonder if Mana Shield had a small window after absorbing an attack that it would not absorb anything or not, but I've been hit many times in a row with other attacks without any injury. I need to investigate more, but I also need to figure out a way to test without actually harming myself in the end. Because of this, I have been debating on whether or not to up my appraisal to see if it will let me analyze spells if the appraisal skill was at a higher proficiency. This was something I was still debating on and how many points I would sink into it. As of now, I can max it out. I wondered if it would help me in finally completing my fusion magic. I looked deep into the cave before taking a deep breath and slowly letting it out. I was trying my best to calm my nerves as I took a step into the cave. Ignite! I created a large flame to float in front of me to burn away the cobwebs. I was not exactly scared of spiders, but the cobwebs were very annoying. But just because I was not scared of them did not mean I shouldn't be careful. Just like back on Earth, some of this world's insects had poison sacs as well and could poison someone if they bite them. Not all bugs were poisonous, but a lot more were. Even a flying mosquito might be poisonous if not careful. Luckily, unlike Earth though, covering your skin in a thin layer of mana could keep you from being bitten by most common insects. Only a few rare insects that I've been told about can bite through it and into your skin, but that is human skin. My skin is much tougher. At least, that is what I tell myself. The cave ran deep underground, at least 50 feet, but it was a straight path that slanted down sharply. Not enough to make it seem like a slide, but enough to force you to watch your footing in case you do fall. The upper part of the cave was made of large rocks caked with mud and roots, but the further down you went, the rockier it got. It was its own ecosystem in itself, but no actual monsters or things I would now consider monsters. After passing level 10, I no longer see anything level 10 and under as a monster. While they technically still are, to me, they're just wild animals that run away when they see me. It didn't take long to get to the end of the cave. It was an open, dry area, unlike the rest of the cave. I've been wondering since I have found the place whether or not some monster made this place its den at some point. But I had to say, after burning away the cobwebs, the whole area was fairly clean if you ignore the rocks and dirt on the ground. It was clean for a cave anyway. It was about 100 square feet of space, making it a cozy little room. After looking the room over, I turned towards the entrance. Earth barrier. Water barrier. fire barrier, wind barrier, lightning barrier. I looked at the barriers now blocking the entrance and nodded my head in satisfaction. Let's hope this is enough. Now that the barriers were up, it was finally time to find a place to sit and begin my evolution. I used sweeping magic, which was nothing more than wind magic that used gusts of wind to move debris to clean the cave floor. Once I cleared an area out, I roasted it a bit with an ignite spell to warm the cold rocky surface before finally sitting down. Only when I was completely comfortable did I open my system menu and begin looking at the evolution system once more. As I read the same text over for the 1,000th time, an idea popped into my head. If I were to up my appraisal skill now, before I evolve, would the information in the system become more detailed? I had thought about this before, but since level 1 appraisal had no change to the system, I kind of threw it to the back of my mind. But now I wondered if maxed out appraisal would actually do something. Since I planned to up it anyways to hopefully help with my magic, I might as well try it out now to see if I can get more information. It's all or nothing. No harm in trying. I quickly switched back to my status menu and began hitting that plus button. Skill points 15-6. Appraisal, LVL 1-10 max. As soon as my appraisal skill hit max, 2 new status information popped up. Attack power and magic power. I was finally able to tell exactly how strong my spells and physical attacks were. Attack power, 5100. Magic power, 5100. Just like my health, attack power and magic power were based on one of my stats, and those stats seemed to be strength for attack power and intelligence from magic power. This was something I knew a lot about because most of the novels I read that were based on video games, especially RPGs, were the same. They used these 2 stats as a base for your actual magic power and attack power. Sometimes there was a racial bonus, but from what I can see, my system seems to be pretty cheap and is all based on my stats. I just hope this extra detailed information actually applied to other things as well. Let's test it out. I picked up a rock and concentrated on it. Soon a notification popped up in front of me. Rock. It's a rock. Can be used to play games or as a crude weapon. Dash. Damage 0 to 1. Special effect. 10% chance of annoying the target, causing them to turn their attention to you. I do not know if I should be laughing or crying at this description. While it did give a lot more information, just the fact that it is so detailed was quite amazing. Okay, enough with the rock. Let's look at the evolution tree again. When I opened the evolution tab, I was greeted with a whole new box with information in it. The evolution system is used in combination with evolution stones in order to allow a being to evolve into a more powerful form taking on that bloodline. An evolved form will come with some good qualities and maybe some bad qualities. Please choose your evolution paths carefully. Sigh. This was very easy to figure out from the very beginning. Want to know is if my body will. Wait, why are there 3 starter evolution lines? Did appraisal open up a hidden line? I was seriously stunned. There were never 3 starting evolution lines. Before there was only Dragling and Dragnoid, but now there was a 3rd line. Dragonic. I clicked the name and began reading the information that popped up. A humanoid race that is half demon, half dragon. At some point during primordial times, the 2 bloodlines merged together flawlessly, taking only the good points of both races and fuse them together to make a much more powerful dragon bloodline. The Dragonic race is a very long-lived race and has the ability to transform into a demonic fire dragon. They can also partially transform parts of their body, giving them an edge in humanoid combat. This is truly an amazing bloodline. But what would I look like if I were to? I looked next to the information and saw a small button. I clicked it, making a new, bigger window open up in front of me. This is me. Wait, it's me, but not the me of now. Staring back at me was me. But I had much paler skin, my horns were no longer just smooth horns, but scaled horns, and my fingers were much longer as well as my nails. My ears seemed to be a tad bit longer and thinner as well. It was not much of a change, but visible to those who knew me. Luckily, this was all it was. On the mirror was another button that had an icon of a dragon. I pressed the button, and I swear I almost screamed. I do not mean scream as in frightened, but in a more of a fangirl type deal. I mean, what I was seeing was just too cool. Just in case, let's check the other ones. I quickly checked the other 2 evolution options. Dragling is nothing more than a small dragon. While cute, I would be stuck that way. I'm not sure if the higher evolution lines for this evolution gave you a chance to evolve into a higher form or not, but I was not going to risk it. Plus, right now, Dragonic seemed to be my best choice, even if Dragnoid seemed cool, mainly because it says it was more powerful. It fits in line perfectly with my obsession to grow stronger. Lastly, I checked Dragonoid, and I must say I'm glad I did up my appraisal skill because I would have become a lizard lady. I was going to choose it anyway, but Dragonic is my choice. I switched back and reread the info on Dragonic once more. I now knew for sure that this was going to be what I wanted. I clicked the slot for the evolution stone, which caused two windows to pop up. One was just a single slot in the middle of the window, and the one next to it was my inventory, but only the evolution stone was showing. After taking a couple of deep breaths to calm my nerves, I finally moved the evolution stone from the inventory to the evolution stone slot. There was no confirm button. Everything became blurry as an overwhelming pain shot through my body. I have never felt such pain before. It felt like all the bones in my body were crushed all at once, after someone ripped out the nerves and was twisting them over and over. The jolts of pain caused tears to well up in my eyes. I could only hunch over into a fetal position and try to endure the pain. The last thing I remember was my vision going black. As my eyes fluttered and opened slowly, the dimly illuminated walls of the cave came into view. Is it over? I slowly sat up. I felt very sticky. My clothes were soaked in sweat. But the first thing my eyes landed on was my elongated fingers and the claw-like fingernails that extended out past them. My skin was much paler than before. It was exactly the same as what I saw in the evolution screen. I felt perfectly fine, but I still examined my body. I stripped down and took a look at everything to see if anything else changed, but luckily it was all the same. Just the features that I saw in the system had changed. However, the scales on my tail were much thicker and stood out more. But besides that, nothing else changed. After getting dressed once again, I let out a sigh of relief and finally opened my status menu to see if my stats had changed. That was when I felt like my eyes were going to fall out of my head. Name: Faith Cerilia. Age 12. Level 17. Race Dragonic. HP 15500/15500. MP Infinity. Attack Power 15100. Magic Power 15100. Status Points 370. Strength 1510. Vitality 1550. Intelligence 1510. Mind Infinity. Agility 1510. Skill Points 6. Skills. Appraisal LVL 10 max. What the hell am I, the last boss? All my attributes had jumped by 1,000, boosting all my visible stats to over 15,000. It is not like I am unhappy, but more stunned than anything. I mean, this was much more than I had ever expected. I know the information on the Dragonic race said it was the strongest dragon bloodline, but still, this was just insane. Right now, I truly felt like I was the final boss of some role-playing game. I sat down on the floor once more and looked through my system menus. Nothing else changed due to maxed out appraisal. Only the two things I'd seen so far. Except that the evolution menu has now changed. It now only has the Dragonic bloodline evolution, and it was very linear. The other bloodlines had more choices after the first evolution, but this time I only had a single path if I wished to evolve again. But strangely enough, the number of evolution stones tripled that of the other bloodlines for what I remember. I needed 9 evolution stones to evolve into a Dragonic princess. I'm not sure if this is some kind of pure version of the Dragonic bloodline or what, but it did have the word princess in its name, so I can only think that this was the case. Maybe a royal bloodline or something. I was not quite sure, and would need to find some way to research this Dragonic race. Sadly, my information on certain things about this world is limited to what I have readily available. I hope one day I can gain access to a large library. Then I can shut myself inside of it for a while to read and gain the knowledge I so need about this world. This is also one of the reasons I am leaving home, hoping to find a place to gather more information about the past and present times, on magic, history, and anything else I can learn. If I truly wish to survive in this world on my own, knowledge is a very important thing that needed to be gained in order to survive. It was second only to strength. Now, then, I have the inherent ability to change forms. I probably should go deeper into the forest and check this out. I do not want prying eyes to see my dragon form. I had to be sure to keep my evolution a secret as much as possible until I find out if other beings in this world are able to evolve as well. I probably would never show my dragon form unless it was absolutely necessary. I can't say that I was not excited right now. I mean, even as I move past the trees, I'm spinning around in joy, wanting to quickly try out this new, innate ability of mine. I remember the image of myself when I pressed the dragon button to get a glimpse of my transformation, and I must say it was just amazing. But I also knew I needed a good spot away from everything, just in case. The place I was heading to was like a small mountain on top of the plateau where my home was located. It was like the inlet I found before and towers up over the treetops. The way this plateau was formed in such a strange way made me wonder what must have happened to make the rock formations form like this in the past. Like, was it some kind of catastrophic event? Maybe some powerful being that could wield unimaginable power had reforged the entire landscape, creating this plateau that had its own mountains. To be honest, I think the powerful being route might not be too far off. When my mother was teaching me history, there were stories of past wars that changed the land in many ways. People who wielded spells that destroyed entire sections of lands, creating whole entire new environments. In the southern part of the continent, there is supposed to be a field of ice and a field of fire side by side that stretches for miles. It's on my list of top 10 places to visit when I finally set out on my own. The number one place I wish to visit, believe it or not, is the royal capital, Sky Lake City. It's a city that hovers in the sky with a massive lake in which a grand castle is built in the middle of. I want to see just how fantasy this world is. I heard in order to get there that you need to ride on an airship that flies in the sky using magic as propulsion. These airships are basically large wooden boats that could fly in the sky. I wonder if one day I will ever own such a thing. While I can soar through the sky as it is now, that is completely different than standing on the deck of a massive airship. I think the novelty of it all is what gets me. Then there was the dwarven capital city of Drogner. From what I read, the city is the home of automata, otherwise known as golems. They're the technical marvels of the amazing engineering of the dwarves, and one of the reasons why most kingdoms do not mess with dwarves. My mother told me out of all demi-humans, dwarves are considered to be the only ones able to truly walk around freely besides the high elves. This was because if you angered the wrong one, it could spark a conflict with either kingdom. High elves were known for their powerful magic, and they even taught in the royal capital's magic academy, a place I will probably never be able to go. Although I would not say, I would not want to. It has a massive library, and I could learn many things there. You would think after going to school in my past life, I would stray away from anything to do with school, but school in this world was much different and was focused around magic. At least, this is what I got from everything I have read. But sadly, I am a demi-human and nowhere even close to being able to go to such a place. Well, I may be able to if I ever crack the code for fusion magic, but I think that would be my only chance. And even if I wasn't a demi-human, my family was way too poor to pay the tuition fees. I do not know the exact sum. I think it was 100 gold a year, only something those from prominent society could actually afford. Maybe I can sneak in some time and take a peek. I came to stop in a large valley in between two peaks. This should be big enough, I think. I really had no idea how big my dragon form was. I only knew that it looked really cool. Now, then, I better, take my clothes off, Dash. I was really hoping no one would show up while I was doing this. I do not know if my clothes would rip during the transformation, since I have never done this before. The last thing I wanted was to transform fully clothed and end up ripping my clothes to shreds and then try to run home naked without a single person seeing me. While I could use my tail for cover and my hands, it was still the fact of it all. And it never dawned on me until now that I should have brought another set of clothes just in case. I guess transformation, while wearing clothes, will need to be tested some other time. I once again made a circle of earth using earth all to hide myself before stripping down. After folding my clothes up and setting them aside in my inventory, it was finally time. So how do I actually transform? Do I do like they did in those Japanese shows back on Earth and yell out some kind of phrase? Hinshin. I stood there making a strange pose for a while before blushing. Yeah, this is pretty embarrassing, but I had to give it a try once. I let out a sigh and scratched my head. Do I just need to will it? Since it was supposed to be innate, an ability that should come naturally to me, I should be able to just kind of think it, will it, and it should work. I shook my body, trying to relax myself before closing my eyes and picturing the image I saw in the system. It was then that I felt the wind brushing past my face. It was a gentle breeze, not very strong. When I opened my eyes, I knew for a fact that something had happened because my line of sight was completely different. I was now looking over the treetops of the forest. I did it. I yelled out. Strangely enough, my mouth, that was now much longer than before, still moved as if I was speaking like a human, just that my voice was also much louder. This caused me to cover my mouth with what were now my large claws. Inspection time. I looked at my front legs, which were covered with reddish-black scales. My claws were pitch black and very long. They were at least half an arm's length of an adult male. I still had 5 digits and could move them like my humanoid hands, which was a relief. But my body was now very big. My underside was a brownish yellow and much softer than the rest of my body. My tail was much longer and stuttier too. I felt like I could easily break down a castle wall with it. Why I suddenly started thinking about breaking castle walls, I do not know. All in all, I had to say for a dragon, I looked very majestic. Well, I'm the only dragon I know, so I'm not sure about other dragons. But from my point of view, I thought I looked very noble. Dragons were a noble race, after all. I just hoped if someone saw me, they would not suddenly bring a huge army to try to kill me. Oh, what about my stats? This thought just came to mind. I wondered if my stats had changed at all after my transformation. Dragon form. Name: Faith Cerelia. Age 12. Level 17. Race Dragonic. HP 115500/115500. MP Infinity. Attack Power 115100. Magic Power 115100. Status Points 370. Strength 11510. Vitality 11550. Intelligence 11510. Mind Infinity. Agility 11510. Skill Points 6. Skills. Appraisal LVL 10 max. So this is what it's like when the final boss suddenly transforms into their final form and becomes immensely powerful. I wonder if with partial transformations, if I am able to also boost my stats. If this was possible, then I could easily transform my arms and legs and give myself an extra stat boost in any fight. But right now, I am kind of in a dilemma. There's one thing I really wanted to do when I transformed into a mighty, majestic dragon, and that was to let out a world-shattering roar. I was seriously debating whether or not I should. Should I? Well, I guess I can just quickly turn back into my humanoid form and get dressed quickly before making a quick escape. I mean, I only get a chance to do things for the first time once. I drop to all fours and lower my head and wiggle my butt. Ahem. La 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 la. Leia. Okay, here we go. Ahem. I took a deep breath and then... Asterisk rua air. Asterisk. I let out the mightiest roar. I did not hang around after letting out such a roar. I quickly transformed back into my humanoid form, which was a very strange experience because this time as I had my eyes open. No pain, it was more like a poof, and I was already humanoid again. I landed softly on the ground, gathered and put my clothes on, and ran away from the area. I was sure that roar just now echoed back towards the village. I can only hope I did not cause a beast tide. I did not think of that before actually roaring like that. I suddenly felt a headache coming on. I guess I can only try to deal with any monster if I see any on my way home running towards the village. Although I wouldn't mind if a few certain people died from Wandermere, I still couldn't kill those who were innocent. Sadly, it seems I'll be saving those I do not wish to save if there really is a beast tide. But as I made my way out of the forest, I noticed the monsters that were normally roaming about were doing just that. I guess my roar did not have any intent behind it, so no beast tide was formed. But this now brought a new thought to mind. Couldn't I start a beast tide if I learned how to push my intent into my roar? Like, what if I wanted the monsters in a forest to go on a rampage and attack a city? I wondered if it would be possible. Would I do such a thing? Well, it depends. I guess it is more of a question on a time and place basis. By the time I got back home, Cerelia Village was full of chatter about my majestic roar. I don't like to brag, but it was truly amazing. I couldn't help but raise my nose a little higher than normal, hearing everyone talking about it. There was very little panic, so I did not feel that bad about my mighty roar. But as soon as I walked through the door of my house, I was pulled into a big hug by Rachel. Thank the gods. Faith, I was worried that something happened to you. Big sister Rachel, I am fine, nothing happened. I smiled and hugged Rachel back. Out of all the people I knew who were once outsiders to my family, only Rachel would be willing to hug me like this. She started doing it from day one when my brother first brought her home. Her exact words were, "Why are you so cute?" and then hugged me without any sign of letting go. From that day on, she spent more time with me than my brother, to the point that he even asked if she was here for me instead of him. Sadly, the answer he wanted to hear did not escape her lips. She bluntly nodded her head and said, "Why wouldn't I come for Faith? She is such a dear. Don't be jealous of your little sister." My brother moped around the house for almost a week after that. I did find it all rather funny, though, so I couldn't help but giggle at his depression. But it seemed Rachel was shy around my brother at the time, so she was always asking me questions about him. She truly liked him a lot, but this was also how we became so close. She fit right in with my family once she became more at home with us. She was very nice, was caring, and put others before herself. Even when she was pregnant, my mother would scold her for trying to help with the housework. She would always tell me to take Rachel out for a chat in the backyard. It had become my job to make sure she wasn't doing much. Childbirth in this world was not easy. While there was healing magic, unless you're highly skilled, the chances of death during childbirth was still very high, almost a 5% chance. Luckily, Rachel had my mother and I there by her side. Auntie Finna was also there helping out during that time. To be honest, childbirth was a scary thing when seeing it for the first time, but once I saw my little nephew, I fell in love. While I will probably never have a child of my own, the possibility is always there. But I will say this. I will make sure highly skilled mages are there to cast healing magic on me, or I might kill whoever impregnated me. This was one of the reasons why my brother was only allowed in the room when the baby was finally born. Rachel was very good with magic as well, and from the look in her eyes while she was pushing, I think my brother would have died. The days after my first transformation flew by. I did not do any testing with magic or anything. The time before I was going to be heading off on my own was growing nearer. I was planning to leave in the next 2 months when mid-season, which is what summer is called, rolled around. It was the last week of the new season, which is what spring is called in this world, that my father gathered the whole family together. The expression on his face was very serious, almost dire. We just got word that the Norian kingdom has declared war on our kingdom of Gravos. What? Sander, what do you mean? My mother cried out. The look on her face was full of worry and fear. War. Just like on Earth. War was not a funny matter. All it brought about was death and destruction. The worst thing about war was that you could be called to bear arms at any time. And because my father was considered a knight, even though inherited, he would be forced to go to the front lines along with my brother. I really couldn't let this happen. If anything happened to them, I might just end up wiping out an entire nation. I haven't tried it, but I'm pretty sure I can cast spells in my dragon form, which means that 15k plus stats that I have would probably wipe a country off the map. Faith! My father looked at me, his nose wrinkling up. What happened to you? They finally noticed. I forgot to think up a good excuse for my change in body features. While subtle, there was no way my mother and father would notice. As for my brother? Yeah, not really something he would pick out. He didn't even notice when Rachel cut her hair short. He slept outside for a few days for that one. Well, it seems my dragonkin blood is a bit stronger than we thought. I lied. I hated it, but I couldn't really tell them, hey, I evolved into an amazing demon dragon. I did not know enough about the demons of this world. There is nothing in the books about them, so I do not know if they are bad or good. Plus, what if my father starts suspecting my mother of cheating on him? This wouldn't be good either. I have read a few novels where the wife would have a child that looked nothing like the father, and it would have features that did not match anyone in the family. I so did not wish for them to start fighting. When did this happen? My mother went from worrying about the war to worrying about me. While I was out practicing earlier, I replied while lowering my head, I hope they would not dislike my new appearance. Faith, make sure you let us know right away if something like this happens again. My father gave me a suspicious look. I do not think he is thinking about what I was thinking about before. I think he is actually putting two and two together. But for now, I will not speak about it. If he doesn't ask, I will keep it to myself. I promise. I answer back while nodding my head. Luckily, for now, nothing else would change about me. At least until I evolve again. How I will look then, I do not know. Good. My father nodded his head before continuing on an even more important issue. At a time like this, I actually had to thank the Norian kingdom for being stupid since it took the spotlight off me. Not that I want war, but still I was having cold sweat drip down my back just now. We need to prepare. Cerelia village will need a place to hide all the women and children. My father looked over at me. I knew right away when he was thinking. I can make an underground tunnel leading to the inlet I train at, plus I can seal it off if needed. I offered. I figured this would be the safest place for all the women and children. It was deep enough in the forest and out of the way that any invading army might not want to risk their men entering. Then I will leave it to you. Rachel, you help Lilith with preparing food storage. Eric and I will begin rounding up the men to hunt monsters for materials for armor. The women will need to be put to work sewing armor for the men. We have no time to spare, so we will begin all of this starting today. My father has always been one of those better safe than sorry type people. While right now, things are just hearsay, he would prefer to be ready for what was to come than anything else. But this also brought up another problem. Father, what about Wandamir? My father's facial expression changed slightly as he looked at me. What about them? I only care about those in my village. People who look down on demi-humans can rot and die for all I care. I will not allow people to follow you through the escape route, only for them to turn on you in the end. I'm not that nice a man. I pursed my lips and said nothing more. I was very satisfied with this answer, though. While I feel for the woman and children in Wandamir, they will eventually do as my father had just said. They would give honeyed words to save their own lives, but once they reached the other side, it was a sure thing that their so-called kindness would change. This was just human nature, and a side of humans I hated, to be honest. While this did not count for all humans, it did count for some, and it only took those few in a group to cause chaos. I was not going to allow there to be any chaos when we're trying to run away. All right, everyone, get to work. Eric, head down to the Jameses and ask him to begin forging as many swords as he can. My father gave out a few more orders to my mother and Rachel before pulling me aside. Faith, if we really do go to war, I will leave it to you on who you allow to escape with you. If you wish to invite those from Wandamir, I will not say anything. But if any person speaks out against you, kill them. Do not hesitate, just kill them. My father was dead serious. I didn't give a reply, only nodded my head. While I knew one day I was going to kill a humanoid being, I was still kind of nervous about it. I was hoping it would not come so soon, but it seems the days before my hands are stained with blood are coming closer. Because I already decided in my heart that if war does break out, I would protect my family no matter what the cost was. Currently, I was in a rocky area of Cerelia village, looking for a somewhat hidden spot. This area was in the opposite direction of the only entrance to the plateau. By making the entrance to the tunnel that will lead to the safe area in the opposite direction, it will help keep the villagers safe from having to go near any enemy. We still did not know if the Norian army was going to show themselves, but we still had to prepare just in case. My job, as my father had instructed, was to create our escape route. The rocky area was perfect as I could easily move some of the larger boulders to hide the entrance I was about to create. While it may be in the opposite direction, I can easily use destruction magic to make the tunnel that led there. I would need to dig deep down in case they have some kind of detection magic. I did not wish for anyone to be caught during the escape. As far as I knew, detection magic could penetrate deep into rocks, but the distance was based on the amount of mana input you used. With a wave of my hand, 10 magic circles appeared in front of me. This was a levitation spell that reduced the weight of objects by limiting how gravity affected the object. With this, I lifted boulders hundreds of times my size up off the ground and began stacking them in the most natural way I could think of. Although a random pile of boulders in the middle of nowhere is not the most natural thing, I was doing it so that they kind of fell into place. I had to lift some boulders up a second and third time to get them to fall in the right spot. After I was satisfied with the placement of the boulders, I began using destruction magic finally. The spell itself was not the easiest to use, as it would not, much unlike its name, destroy anything. For some reason, it did not work on organic things like humanoids or plants, and it was tricky to destroy the things it could without overdoing it. I have studied it quite a bit and was able to figure out some of its quirks. To this day, I think it is one of the hardest spells I have used, and it is only an intermediate spell. To put it in different words, the high-level spell Grandfall is easier to cast, and in fact, I can cast it really quickly. But destruction magic takes a lot of extra alterations to the runic equation when you're trying to do specific things with it. Luckily, my obsession with magic wouldn't let me give up on it after failing the first few times I tried to use it. It took almost 3 months before I finally got the hang of it. A lot of trial and error, but it was well worth it, as in times like this, it really comes in handy. With another wave of my hand, I created a new magic circle and began destroying the rock under the boulder formation. Magic circle after magic circle was created as I dug down at a slant until I felt things were deep enough and slowly flattened the tunnel out. Only then did I begin digging in the opposite direction. Using detection magic, I was able to get a good image of the area above me, so I could easily tell which direction was correct. I continued to destroy the rock over and over. The process was quick and easy. If this was Earth, there would be no way anyone would be able to finish such a long tunnel in just a few hours, but magic made such a thing possible. After an hour, I had already dug my way under Wandermere. I seemed to have dug right under the village elder's house and could see a group of men standing there arguing with the village elder. Let's see what they are saying. I added a second spell that overlaps with the detection spell called Hearing. It allows me to hear whatever I was seeing, no matter how far the distance. As long as I could see it clearly, I would be able to hear what was being said. Village elder, what do we do? If war really does break out, how are we going to fend off any attackers? What are you worried about? The Cerilias won't allow their village to be harmed. I am sure before the enemy even gets near, they will dispatch them. But what if they don't? What if they turn and run? Then I will report them to the king for failing to uphold their duties as inherited knights. Just like how you men will also need to fight. Just stand behind Sander, and you will live to see another day. Hearing the village elder's words really angers me. You want to make use of my family? Humph. I snap my fingers, and the next thing I hear is people yelling about a fire. Serves them right. How dare they try to use my father as some kind of meat shield? I had been thinking of letting them escape with Cryelia village, but now I won't. Screw them. I cannot and will not forgive anyone who dares try to make use of my family. My father was right when he said to not help the people of this village. After huffing a bit more, I continued on my way towards my hidden practice grounds. It took another 2 hours, but I had finally dug my way back to the surface. I made sure to make a staircase leading up to make it easier for the villagers to climb out. With things set for the tunnel, I quickly hid the exit with a few boulders to give it some cover. I dusted my hands off and looked up at the sky. Let's hope no war breaks out. Oh, how I wished I never said those words. Because the next afternoon, my father told me that the Norian army had already crossed our border. He had sent some of the village guards out to check the borders, and well, it seems they will be on our doorstep in a few weeks' time. Why are they heading here? I did not understand why they would first come to this village of all places. Faith, this village is one of the few villages here on the border, and the closest to where they crossed. They would use this place to gather supplies to progress further inland until they get to the next village or town. My father explained, I guess it made sense, but I couldn't help wondering how they had such good intel on our village. I mean, it was kind of out of the way and hard to see. I took a deep breath before letting it out. I couldn't say I was not worried. In truth, I was very worried. My father, my brother, and the kind men of the village would need to go to the front lines to defend our village. It was basically a suicide mission, but if they turned tail and ran and word of it got back to the king, we would all be seen as traitors of the kingdom. Kingdom law comes before our own well-being. And as my father is a knight, not only him, but my mother, brother, Rachel, myself, and even my baby nephew would all end up dying. Turning your back on the crown was punishable by up to 9 generations of your family. It looks like I will need to step in. I mumbled to myself. Luckily, my father did not hear me. He seemed to be lost in deep thought. I am sure he would tell me to run no matter what. The Norian kingdom was a kingdom that still saw demi-humans as nothing but slaves. If I was caught, I would end up with a slave collar to live out my life as a slave. I did not even want to think of the horrors I would have to face if I became a slave. When should we hold the evacuation? I asked. I needed to know when we would be moving the women and children out. At the end of the week. As your part is done, you will help your mother and Rachel with the food preservation. Your magic is more powerful, and you have more mana, so you can freeze more food. Also, spend the next 2 days hunting some of the bigger monsters. Get as many as you can. I'm sure you won't have any issues bringing it back, will you? My father asked. He seemed to be trying to cover all our bases. There is no telling how long the fight will be, or how long the Norian army would end up occupying the village if we do end up in defeat, so food storage was a priority. Yes, have Mother and Rachel gather everything once they have finished their preparations, and I will move it to the safe area. I clench my fists at my side. I will first evacuate everyone before moving to the front lines. Before my father and the other men are forced to fight, I will wipe out this stupid Norian army that dares to threaten my family's safety. I just hope whatever God governs this world can forgive me for drawing blood. If I was living back on Earth, I would be living a carefree life. At this point in time, I would be probably job hunting or already working for some company after college. Going out to eat with the other employees, drinking, and having a good time. Maybe even be married with a child. Who knows? Life is ever-changing, and it seems my life here will also be changing soon. I sighed as I left my father to finish what he was doing and headed back outside. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly. I must do what I need to do to protect my family. I must protect the smiles of the people who love me so dearly. This should do. I made enough stone huts and also set up a cave for cold storage. I went above and beyond and created much more, just in case we all had to be stuck here for a while. No sense in everyone staying outside in the elements when I can just use earth magic and create stone houses. I made just enough stone houses for each family. While small, they will make do for now. I even went out of my way to make an outhouse as well for each house. It had already been almost a week since the Norian army had crossed the border, and their current direction was right for our village. Old Man James has been working day and night. Although advanced in age, he was the best blacksmith in Wandermere before moving to Cerelia village. He got sick of all the discrimination. His late wife seemed to have been a demi-human as well. My mother and even the ladies of the village have all been in working mode, making armor and equipment for the men and boys who would be going to war. Each one knew what would happen if those soldiers got into the village, so even if they did not wish to see their husbands or children off, they had no choice. Women were prime targets for soldiers, sadly. What strikes me as strange is that those men and women of Wandermere have not even begun preparing. It is as if they are relying on my father to handle everything. Because I know this is exactly what is going on, every chance I get, I set the village chief's house on fire now when I pass by. Even tonight, there's a nice blaze lighting up the night sky in his garden. No point in being discreet when the entire Norian army is heading our way. If anything, I'm causing them to wander nearer than Cerelia village. I mean, what is more noticeable, a small village that is pitch dark at night, or the huge, blazing light bulb that is lighting up the night sky? I think the answer is pretty much a given, and anyone who answers otherwise is plain dumb. Faith, you're back. Get ready to move out. You will be bringing everyone tonight to the safe zone. My father was the first person I saw as I walked through the door. His words were also something I had expected. He had told me earlier we would move during the night, so not even the eyes of those in Wandermere could see where we had escaped to. I had already planned to destroy the entrance to the tunnel once everyone was through so that no one could ever use it. Dash, I will gather everyone now, I said before turning back around and going to leave, but stopped when my father called after me. Faith, thank you for all the hard work. I sighed, hearing my father's words. I turned and looked at him with a forced smile. I did not need thanks. I just need my father and brother to be safe. I did not let him answer as I disappeared into the darkness. I would finish my final task and leave the villagers to my mother and Rachel. Then I will deal with the Norian army. Before the brave men of Cerelia village set off to war, I will deal with those who wish to harm my family. It will also keep the bastards who are against my father from stabbing him in the back as well. There is no telling what they will do in order to save their lives. They might try to kill my father and serve his head up on a silver platter to the general of the Norian army. But sadly for them, they will never get a chance to do such a thing. It took a while, but we gathered all the elderly, women, and children and got them into the tunnel. After sealing the entrance, I led everyone to the safe area. Faith, dear, is this where we will be staying? Yes, Annie Finna, I hope you do not mind, but I set you up to stay with my family. I smiled and held Annie Finna's hand. She seemed very worried. She had no one but our family to rely on anymore. No, I don't mind at all. Auntie Finna squeezed my hand and lowered her head next to mine. Thank you for thinking about me. I smiled, hugged her neck, and kissed her cheek. Of course, you are my Annie Finna. I would not let you go through this alone. You are always such a dear. Auntie Finna hugged me tightly. We talked as we walked. My mother was settling the others, and while Rachel was helping keep an eye on the kids, my nephew wrapped in her arms. After I settled Annie Finna in, I want to find my mother. Mother, I need to go back to the village. I will be back soon. Okay, be careful. Oh, and Faith, tell your father if you see him. Tell him. Never mind. I almost teared up. I could see the panic and worry in my mother's eyes. I pulled her into a hug, not wanting to let her go. You'll be fine. I promise. I smiled and kissed her cheek before letting her go and running off, disappearing into the night. I caught a confused expression on her face, but I could only apologize internally for lying to her. I do not know when I'll be back. I do not know how powerful the Norian army is, or if I am overestimating myself. I could be misjudging this world's power balance and be only on the lower spectrum of things. I do not know since I have never left this plateau. But I do know my stats are absolutely insane, and when in my dragon form, they are even crazier. I hope this is enough to overcome an entire army. I did not plan to return to the village. I already knew my father was not planning to move to their defensive positions until the next day. Tonight was a prep meeting that would go over their plan to do what they can to protect the village. A suicide mission that all the men there knew they would most likely die in. And me? I was now standing at the edge of the cliff, looking down over the mighty Norian army below. In front of me were billows of smoke and the light of campfires of the tens of thousands of soldiers below. It may seem crazy for me to even be here, standing alone against so many. But for me, this was the only way to ensure the survival of those I love. My home, my family, and all those who have treated me so kindly over the years. I wish to protect them all, even if it means becoming a demon myself. Whether or not I will survive any of this, I do not know. But none of that matters. None of it. I took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. For my family, I am willing to risk it all. For them, I am willing to give up this life of mine. I owe them much more than they can ever imagine. I raised my hand up towards the sky, magic circles forming in my eyes. Softly, 2 words escaped my lips, Grandfall. A loud rumble could be heard coming from the sky. The darkness of night instantly lit up. A massive ball of fiery rock could be seen piercing through the planet's atmosphere. This was what Grandfall truly was, a spell that could wipe out an entire city. A spell that could easily defeat an army that was not prepared. But sadly, I looked down at the layers upon layers of magic barriers being erected and frowned. They sure move quickly. Knowing Grand Fall would probably not wipe them out completely, I rose into the air. I turned and looked at the village behind me and waved my hand. A blue fog spread out in front of me. It stretched across the entire cliffside, blocking off any path towards my position. This spell was called Confusion Mist. It would make those who enter it always return to where they started, no matter how hard they try. Forgive me, Father, but my wish is to protect you all. I hoped the fog that rose high into the sky would keep my father at bay. I turned back and around and watched as the large meteor finally made contact with land. The ground shook violently as my spell and the Norian army barriers collided, causing waves of energy to spread out in all directions, destroying the land below. Who would win? I don't know. The Grand Fall spell does not allow for any adjustments, so it was not like I could make it any more powerful. But it was not like I was going to sit around and wait and see who the winner or loser would be. I wrapped myself in a mana shield and flew out towards the army. With a wave of my hand, more and more magic circles began forming around me. Condensed fireballs began to form at each magic circle, over 1,000 in total. This was an improved version of the normal fireball and would do hundreds of times the damage than the original. Since you want war, I raised my hand once more before slowly lowering it. Then I will give you war. My white hair fluttered in the breeze. My orange eyes glowed as if they were on fire themselves. I felt no emotion. I felt nothing as I watched my attacks that were like a machine gun firing over and over towards the shields. I would bombard the enemy with so much magic they would think an army of millions was attacking them from the dark. My plan may seem horrible. All I was doing was a frontal assault, but what do you expect from someone who has no skill in military combat? Yes, I could spend points and become a genius in it, but what good would that do me now? I'm not commanding any army. I came out here for a purpose, and that was the total annihilation of the invading army in front of me. I would not allow them to run or surrender. I will destroy them all. Then, and only then, will none of them be able to come back to take revenge. For some reason, the thought of destroying them all brings a smile to my face. TCH. I click my tongue. The barriers of the mages of the Norian kingdom were much more competent than I had expected. Then, Grand Fall. I let another massive meteor drop from the sky. I decided since I could not get through their barriers with magic that I should take out the ones creating them. The only problem was those same mages were surrounded by soldiers. I guess I will need to charge in. Once I am inside the barrier, I can cast magic. I let my body fall into the shadow of the cliffside. At the same time, my machine gun-like condensed fireballs were still firing off, one after the other. I had set up the command line for the spell to be one that continuously fired. With each attack, it would drain the appropriate mana from me. I did not need to be near them at all. I had no idea the actual distance at which it would stop, but I could keep the magic in the air going while I was doing other things. It was an idea that came to me when I was trying to come up with a landmine kind of spell. I was trying to come up with spells I could use while out on my journey that would allow me to sleep peacefully at night. It was then that it dawned on me that I had no idea if spells could even be activated in such a way, since they would need to be supplied with my mana, and all spells needed an activation word. But when I thought about it more, there were tools and other things that did not require an activation word to use the power of the magic inside. Otherwise, things like airships and other objects powered by magic wouldn't be able to exist. It was then that I remembered reading about something called runic scripting. It was a way to infuse objects with certain spells while only needing to set a trigger activation. The only problem was that they needed much more mana than a normal spell, almost 50 times as much. For me, that was no issue, but it made me think that if I can make a runic script that self-activates, why can't I do the same with a normal spell, hence the machine gun-like barrage I was using at this time? I tested my theory out, and it worked. But then I wondered if I could be away from the spell, as it was continuously firing off. So while I was destroying rocks with my spells, I wandered through the forest, while keeping an eye on the area with the spells with my detection magic, and sure enough, they kept going even when I was miles away from the area. Thankfully, while the fireballs may not be breaking through the magic barriers, they still made a perfect distraction. Along with the double Grand Fall that they were trying to ward off, I should be able to make my way into the enemy lines. With detection magic going at full blast, I was looking for the weakest spot in the enemy lines. And it seemed due to my sudden attack, they were not in the best of formations. It took me only a few minutes to find the weak point, so I charged in. With my sword drawn and covered in a self-made, vibrating wind spell that makes it so sharp it can cut through any metal. I walked right up to the barrier and pressed my hand against it. When I saw that it was only a barrier that blocked magic, my lips curled up. But that was when a strange feeling began welling up inside me. An urge deep inside me so wished to shed the blood of those in front of me. I'm not sure if these strange feelings were due to my new bloodlines or not, but it was starting to make me feel, not me, but at the same time, I knew I would have to give in to this new instinct and finally drench my hands in blood. Was I ready for such a thing? No, but I was committed to keeping my family safe, even if I must become a demon myself. Hey, who are you? I was noticed right away when I walked through the barrier. It must have been a shock to these soldiers to see a little girl walk in. I mean, I did look 10 after all, not to mention my horns, wings, and tail. It only took a few seconds for another soldier to yell out, "What is a damn demi doing here? She doesn't even have a collar. Someone come, bring me a collar. She's a cute one." The soldier's words caused me to frown. Cute? Maybe, but I look like a child. Plus, I am holding a sword. So this makes no sense. I can only see these men as pretty stupid. I mean, I, a lone girl, have a sword and am on a battlefield with two grand falls smashing into their barriers, along with so many fireballs slamming into those same barriers as well. But to them, I pose no threat? Shouldn't they be more wary while under attack? Or is this because the enemy looks down on the kingdom they are invading? I guess none of this matters, though. I tilted my head to the side and smiled before disappearing from where I stood, acceleration magic combined with strengthening magic. My speed was almost at the speed of sound. Shit, watch out. My sword swung through the air and connected with its target, slicing through the neck of the closest soldier to me. I had finally done it. I had killed a humanoid being for the first time, and surprisingly, it made my blood boil. I felt nothing. With a wave of my hand, hundreds of magic circles formed in the air. Fireballs, just like the ones outside, slamming into their barrier, began blasting everything in front of me. The painful cries of the soldiers who were dying due to my actions, some being cut down by my blade, others being burned alive from the condensed fireballs that hit them, even with the strong stench of blood entering my nose, even with the sight of soldiers' innards falling to the ground, even as the blood of my enemy that sprayed on my clothes, my hands, and my face, I showed no reaction. I was making the world around me a fiery, bloody hell of death, and I seemed unfazed. This scared me the most, but I could not stop. I had to annihilate the enemy no matter what. It was either them or me. Only when the enemy was completely wiped out would I know that my family would be safe. I danced in the blood of my enemies as I continued my rampage. While I killed soldiers with my sword, I began focusing fire on the mages in the center that were being protected. With them being forced to set up barriers in two different areas, their mana was slowly draining. The barriers that were blocking the two grand falls were starting to waver. And me? Right now, I am invincible. Not a single sword could pierce my mana shield. Not a single spell could break through and singe a strand of my hair. I was like the goddess who had descended on the battlefield to dish out divine punishment on those who have sinned. Having so much power and being able to fight alone without a single worry was a power any kingdom of this world would wish to have for themselves. At the same time, I was internally conflicted about how powerful I truly was. I wanted power, but I wonder if having so much power now that I was using it to kill so many was actually a good thing. But even while I was struggling with all of this, my lips were still curled up into a smile. A giggle had even escaped my lips. My blood felt like it was on fire. I was starting to wonder if becoming a Dragonic was a good thing. I began to wonder if I should have done my research better, but I feel so exhilarated. Ha ha ha. I hopped, jumped, skipped, and twirled my way through the battlefield. I have no idea how many have died in my hands, but my spells were firing indiscriminately in all directions. The screams of pain, the yells for my death. I could hear them all, but they all seemed to blend together. The chaos I was causing was forcing the army's formation to move toward me. It seemed the commander was not as stupid as some of these soldiers. 1, 2, 3, 4. How much longer can you hold on for? I began singing a strange song. It was eerie and so unlike me, but I couldn't stop myself. I felt the more the scent of blood filled my nose, the more my mind was starting to slip. I need to finish this quickly. Any more, and I will lose myself. I muttered while waving my hand. I was putting my everything into this while I still have some control of what I was doing. Thousands upon thousands of magic circles filled the sky above the Norian army. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Heaven's Rain, a high-level light spell that formed spears of light that were as hot as the sun rained down from the sky. Seconds later, a shattering sound could be heard as the two grand falls pierced through the barriers. Boom! A wave of fiery energy swept the land as the two meteors crashed into the ground. My little body was flung backward straight into the cliff wall. Flames spread out in all directions as pain surged through my body. Cough! Blood spilled from my mouth. I struggled to press my hand to my body as I forced out two words, high heel. A wave of warmth filled my body. My wounds quickly healed up as I stumbled from the faith-shaped imprint in the cliff wall. I used detection magic to see through the cloud of dust and debris. To my astonishment, a large portion of the Norian army had actually survived. I guess it's not over yet, but luckily I feel myself again. The pain had slightly snapped me out of my crazed state, but not enough to keep my mind from slipping back into it. The scent of blood and the agonizing screams of those who were not killed but still severely hurt rang out in my ears. What lay before me was no longer the lush green landscape that I used to love looking out over. It was now a massive crater with scarred burnt lands all around it. And outside this crater were the leftover remnants of the Norian army. I flapped my wings and flew up into the air. With a wave of my hand, I created a magic circle in front of me. Blow! A strong gust of wind swept by, blowing away all the dust and debris. I could now get a clear look with my own eyes at the destruction I had caused. I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, but I pushed them down. Right now was not the time for this. If I am to continue on to finish off the enemy, then I need to hold my emotions back. I needed to allow myself to once more sink into darkness. To finish what I started, I need to rely on that feeling of bloodlust and craziness. Maybe if I had more time to grow, I could deal with all of this with a level head, but I unfortunately did not have time to truly come to terms with what it meant to become a demon. As I watched the Norian army foolishly begin gathering in the same spot, I could only shake my head. Only fools would gather together once more. I really couldn't understand why they would cluster together like this unless they were trying to be wiped out. Dash! I extended my detection magic over the area and tried to figure out what they were doing. It was then that I noticed a single person hiding in the middle of the group as they tried to retreat. That must be the commander. I really wonder if he thinks using his own men as shields will truly protect him. He was better off running for it on his own. At least with his men scattered all over, it would make things more difficult for me. Letting out a sigh, I waved my hand and sent a rain of fireballs down onto the group. The entire area turned into another crater, not leaving a single person alive. I had effectively destroyed the Norian army that had made their way here. While the battle lasted a lot longer than I had planned, I worried for my future. The feeling that welled up inside me was growing stronger by the second due to the smell of blood. I was starting to get an urge to cross the border myself and wipe out the entire Norian nation. My instincts kept telling me to kill those who wished to harm my family, and it was taking my everything to keep myself from doing what my instincts were telling me. I bit my lip, drawing blood, using the pain to clear my head, but it was of little use. My mind was slowly sinking back into a crazed state. But sadly my work was not done, so I could not leave the area. I should use detection in the surrounding area in case there are any other troops. I flew up high into the sky and allowed my detection magic to spread out over the area near the border. What I saw was not a pleasant sight. Rape, pillaging, and all the atrocities you could think of were happening out in the villages near the border. The Norian army was not just this group alone, but looked to be quite a few of what was called on Earth an army corps, which consisted of around 45,000 soldiers. From what I was seeing, besides the one I just wiped out, there were quite a few crossing the border. This made me realize that the population of this world was much higher than I could have ever imagined. It made me wonder just how big the cities of this world truly were. It also made me even more excited to explore this world. But between the excitement and wonder, my bloodlust was rising more and more. The thought of seeing thousands of soldiers die by my hand was filling me with crazed thoughts. I knew if I did not go out and deal with this, my father and brother and the other men of the village would have to deal with it. I was starting to feel as I did before when I was dancing around in the blood of my enemies. My lips were already curled up into a smile. I took a step forward and was about to fly out when a voice came from behind me. Faith! I froze. My entire body became stiff. I did not want my family to find out about this. But somehow, my father was able to make it through the fog. As I turned around, I was like a broken doll. My mind was still filled with the thrill of killing, so my lips were still curled up into a sinister smile. As I looked at my father, who was looking back at me, the me whose white hair was now dyed red in blood, the me who was covered from head to toe in the blood of her enemies, the me who was smiling like a maniac. My father's brow wrinkled as he slowly came to stand in air in front of me. Care to explain? Huh. I giggled. I couldn't stop it. I felt my body twitching, as if it wished to stab out with my sword. But I could never harm my father, the man who raised me with so much love and care. Tears welled up in my eyes, even though they were still wide and crazy looking. I was scared. I was truly scared of myself and what I would do. I quickly backed up, afraid I would lash out. But my father stepped forward once more. Faith, what is wrong? My father asked, his voice holding no anger. It was full of care and concern. Don't come close, I said beggingly while lowering my head. I did not wish for him to see my expression. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I backed up some more. I will come close. You are my daughter when something is wrong. I, as a father, will stand by your side and try to help you as much as I can. My father came over to me and was about to pull me into a hug, but I quickly retreated some more. I looked up at my father, tears rolling down my cheeks. Father, please go. I'm having a hard time controlling myself. Please, if you get too close, I might end up hurting you. I did not wish to hurt anyone I loved. I regretted evolving so much now. If I had only waited. If I only waited to see just how dangerous the Dragonic bloodline was, then maybe. My thoughts were cut off when I heard an angry voice fill my ears. Faith, you dare reject my help? Do you think so lowly of your father? I might not look it, but I am pretty strong myself. Father, it's not that. Please just go. Until I can gain control of myself. Please. I cried out in my heart. I couldn't bear to say it out loud, though. Humph. Like I will listen to a brat of a daughter. My father suddenly took a step forward and appeared in front of me. His big, muscular, tanned arms wrapped around me and pulled me into his embrace. My mind went blank, and the sword in my hand slipped from my grip. The tears that were already falling turned into a waterfall and rained down my face as I let out all my pent-up emotions. Wah! I cried. I cried like I have never cried before. All the feelings inside me about continuing my killing spree disappeared. All that was left was all the emotions I had bottled up inside me were released like a trickling faucet that was turned on full blast. I had killed so many. My entire being, even my soul, was now stained in the blood of others. I felt like a little kid as I buried my face into my father's chest. My father did not say a word as I cried. He only gently rocked me back and forth in his arms, rubbing my small back with his big hands. It felt like my soul was being healed by him. Out of everyone in my family, he knew the most about my worries and fears about my future. Things I even kept from my mother in order to not worry her, he knew about. I guess you could say I was a daddy's girl. At some point, as I cried in his arms, I fell asleep. When I woke up next, I found myself in my own bed. Next to me was Rachel, who was holding my hand still sound asleep. I looked down to see my clothes had been changed, and it seemed someone must have bathed me as well. I knew my father would never do such a thing, so I can only guess it was Rachel or my mother who did it. I guess I must have made them all worry about me. I wonder what my father told my mother. For some reason, I was starting to worry. I wonder if I should pretend to sleep for the day. No, I do not think that will trick anyone. I'm a pretty bad actor. I looked up at the ceiling and let out a sigh of relief. I felt 100% me again. This feeling alone was enough to make me relax. I never wish to end up in such a state again. I hope nothing like this happens again that will make me lose myself. It scares me to think about it. What if I cannot return to my senses? Will I become some kind of death goddess? I can only hope the future will bring nothing but peace. Faith, I know you are awake. We need to talk. I was able to get out of bed without waking Rachel. She must have been really tired. I felt bad that I had caused her so much trouble. When I went to the main room, my mother, brother, and father were all sitting there waiting for me. I walked in with slow steps with my head lowered, waiting to be yelled at. I ran off and faced an entire army by myself, not to mention killing so many people. If you add in the strange way I was acting in front of my father, I was in for a long bout of questioning. Faith, come sit. My father patted his knee. I slowly edged my way over and sat down on it. He pulled me into a hug and rested his chin on top of my head. Faith, can you tell us why you did what you did? My mother asked. Her voice was calm, but I could hear a hint of trembling as if she was about to cry. I looked up at my mother, whose eyes were indeed tearing up before lowering my head again. I just wanted to protect you all. Ever since I was born, I've been grateful to have such caring parents. You never once shunned me for being a demi-human. You treated me so well and were even willing to be kicked out of Wandermere village for my sake. I love you all so much, so when I thought about how I might lose father and brother, I acted without much thought. I was willing to become a demon to keep you all safe. Even if I was hated by the world, as long as you three were safe, I would not care. Faith, my mother started crying as she pulled me right from my father's embrace into hers. She hugged me so tight that I felt like I would die from lack of oxygen. Thankfully, my father came to my rescue. Lilith, if you keep squeezing her, she will die. Dash. My mother eased her hug, but still did not let me go. Faith, while I am touched by your sentiment and how much you love all of us, you still scared the hell out of all of us. I knew right away that it was you that put up the confusion misspell. I can sense your mana for miles. Not only that, no one else in the village has the mana to cast so many spells at once. I am very glad you came back safe and sound, but you must never do something like that again without letting us know, all right? My father's words held both care and sternness. I nodded my head in response. I should have been more forward with my actions, but I knew if I did, they would not have let me go. Ouch! I felt a sharp knock on the head, causing me to look up at my mother with teary eyes. She just hit me hard. I'm glad it hurts. You need some sense knocked into you. How dare you run off and fight? I'm glad you were safe, but this and that are two different things. If you ever do that again, I will yank your pants down, lift your tail, and spank your bottom until it is as red as an apple. I had no choice but to lower my head and say yes, Mama, to everything she said. I could see out of the corner of my eye that both my brother and father had moved away from me. The looks that they gave me were filled with pity. Why is it that at times like this, they always leave me behind? What happened to all the familial love from a few seconds ago? Brother, why are you pumping your fists at me as if telling me to fight on? Maybe I should have dragged him along with me. Then he could share some of this burden. Trapped in my mother's arms, I was given a 3-hour-long lecture. At some point, I became numb to what she was saying and even nodded off a few times, which resulted in being hit in the head again. All I can say was I was able to escape the red bottom technique. My poor little bottom had been saved. But before I was in the clear, Father called me to take a walk with him. We walked down the road, leading towards the cliffside. He held my hand as we walked. It reminded me of the times when I was younger. He used to do the same thing. Just like this, father and daughter walked silently down the rocky dirt road. When we reached the cliff, we both sat in our usual spot at the edge, looking out over the vast landscape below. But now, the area closest to us was no longer a beautiful sight. It was a burnt wasteland that was created by none other than myself. Off in the distance, the sound of explosions could be heard, and smoke in multiple areas was rising up into the sky. The images of everything that happened were flashing in my mind. Luckily, the smell of blood was no longer in the air. Now that I was getting a good look, it seemed someone had cleaned up the battlefield. No dead bodies could be seen anywhere. We only sat in silence for a short while when my father finally spoke up. "Faith, do you have something to tell me?" I bit my bottom lip. I was unsure of what I should even say. How am I supposed to explain anything? I mean, should I just come out and tell him everything? Should I tell him that, hey, your daughter is someone who is reborn and has this crazy system thing? I have hidden all of this in case people found out about it. I did not wish for them to be able to use anything against my family. "Faith, you do not need to hide it anymore. I already tested your blood against your mother and I. We know your bloodline has changed. You can't tell me your recent appearance change is due to your bloodline suddenly becoming more pure, because your bloodline since birth was as pure as a dragonkin bloodline can get. But now, you have a different, stronger bloodline running through your veins. And it is neither your mother's nor my own." My father's words made me finally look up at him in shock. He knew my bloodline was no longer the same. Right now, it could be said I was no longer blood related to him. I suddenly felt a little scared. I knew it would not happen, but I couldn't help that sudden feeling of fear that welled up inside me of being told I am no longer his daughter. I guess he sensed my fear because my father pulled me into a hug. "You will always be my daughter. I just worry about you. When I saw you in that state of bloodlust that was controlling your actions, I knew something was not right with your bloodline. This is why I checked. Faith, you will have a harder time from now on. You must gain control of this new bloodline. Never let it control you. A strong bloodline can be a double-edged sword, as you now know. It can cause you to gain incredible power and do things you would never be able to do otherwise. But they can also consume you and erode your mentality so that the ancient will within it can control your every action. I do not know how you gain this bloodline, but whatever it is, you must be careful. That is why we will put you in a situation where you will have to try to control it no matter what." My father's words were starting to piece together some of the things I was confused about. I never knew bloodlines had wills within them. This explained a lot about my actions during the fight. "Father, have you ever heard of the Dragonic bloodline?" I decided to ask. It may help me in understanding my new self. It was better to confide in my family than to one day hurt them due to my ignorance. "Dragonic?" My father fell into thought. "I'm not too sure. Is there anything you know about your bloodline?" "I know it is a cross between demons and dragons. I am also able to transform. I did not have much practice, but I could transform my hand partially. I did not dare transform into my big dragon form right now for fear of others seeing it. I stretched out my hand and closed my eyes. My blood began to flow towards my right hand, and in a matter of seconds, it had grown to 50 times its normal size. A dragon claw with blackish red scales and long black claws. It was still small in comparison to my normal dragon form size, but it was just as deadly. Although it was big, it did not feel heavy to me at all. I could even move it around freely. This was my second time being able to do this. My father's eyes widened. "Faith, quickly transform back. Never let anyone see your transformation." Now I know where that roar came from. It was you. Yes. That was my full-body transformation into a dragon. I confessed. Judging by his reaction, it would be very bad if anyone saw my dragon form. Is being a dragon bad? It's not bad per se. It is more that they would try to use your power for themselves. Faith, you have to be very careful from now on. Even more so than before. Never tell anyone else about this. We will have to keep this a secret between the two of us. Seeing my father's serious expression, I quickly nodded my head. Faith, it is not known by many, but dragons still exist in this world. They are still the most powerful beings known to all humankind. They are feared, revered as gods, and also objects of greed. While the dragonkin are a dying race, they are no match to an actual dragon. I now understand why you were able to become powerful enough to destroy an entire army. As for the cross between demons and dragons, this poses another problem. Get rest today. Tomorrow we set out. Where are we going? I asked. To suddenly leave like this confused me. We are going to war. We need to get you to control the ancient will in your bloodline. War? While I hated the idea, it was true that unless I can get control over my ancient bloodline, I will always be at risk of losing myself to the ancient will. It seemed to be a type of will that wished to slaughter. And I, for one, was not a fan of slaughtering, although my previous battle did not make it seem like I was against it. In truth, I just wished to adventure around and only fight if it was absolutely necessary. I was not against helping others and whatnot, but this was my true wish. I wanted to run around seeing the sights of the world and then stopping to visit my family every once in a while. This way, I could go to different lands and learn more magic along the way. But now, not just once but twice, I will need to venture on a battlefield. Although I did not wish for it, I knew it was important. At least this time, I would not be alone. So maybe, just maybe, under my father's guidance, I will be able to quickly gain control over this will. Faith, are you listening to me? I lowered my head and blushed while pursuing my lips. I really wasn't listening. I heard my father let out a long sigh as he knocked me on the head. Listen to what I'm going to say. We will take things slow. We will first get you used to the scent of blood before we have you fight anyone. Only when I'm sure you are able to handle that will we move to the next step. To control your will, you'll need to take baby steps. Your great-grandfather was a knowledgeable man. He taught me many things when I was younger. How to control bloodlines was one of them. He is also the reason why no dragons still exist. I was there with him when I was young, when we saw one for ourselves. I will never forget that day. My grandfather took me out to the mountains that you see way over in the distance over there. We were searching for or to make me the sword I still use to this day. I was just a year older than you at the time. We climbed halfway up the mountain, and we were sitting on a ledge resting when we saw it. It was a fire dragon. All of its scales were a deep red color, and the body itself was massive enough to turn day into night. While the books say dragons are gone, they are still here, most likely staying away from worldly things. The dragon race is an ancient race that has years upon years of knowledge that all dragons gain from their parents when they are born. Sadly, Dragonkin never got to have such a trait. My father sighed as he leaned back, using his hands to prop his body up. Farther, did great-grandpa ever mention anything about demons? I wondered if this would jog my father's memory about a demon race. Not that I can remember. It might be a race from ancient times, one that was not documented much. But Faith, how do you know that you have such a bloodline? This question made me freeze. Yes, how would I know what my bloodlines were? I'm not sure. I just kind of know. It's hard to explain. I think I am becoming a genius at lying. Although it was not the best of skills to be mastering, it was still getting me out of many sticky situations like how it was now. Because my father nodded his head and sighed. It is said that bloodlines will sometimes allow you to sense what you are. The royal family has an ancient bloodline, and so do some of the highest nobles in the kingdom. This is the same for all kingdoms. You will barely find a royal family of any kingdom without an ancient bloodline. So make them stronger or make it so that their magic is insanely powerful. As for our kingdom, the Gravos royal family has a high aptitude for magic. I heard even the crown prince is more powerful than the highest court magicians. But he still doesn't hold a candle to my faith. To think you were able to cast not only 2 grand falls, but also multiple heavenly rains. The amount of mana you have really surprised me, and kind of makes me a bit jealous. I can only cast 1 grand fall at most before I'm almost out. My father's words caused my mouth to drop open. I now realize he had been watching the entire time. On top of that, he can even cast grand fall. I held my head. My father, a man who farms for a living out on the border of the kingdom, has enough power to be a high royal court mage. When I tell you I'm not weak, I mean it, you brat. What are you holding your head for? My father pulled me into his arms and began ruffling my hair. Even though I now know that my father is like super duper cooler than before, I still worry for him. This is a man who says the wrong thing to my mother all the time and ends up sleeping outside because of it. Will he truly be okay? I looked up at my father, who was still praising himself, and smiled. In this life, I am truly blessed. No matter how I think about it, it is like I rolled a lucky die. I was able to be reborn into a family that loves and cares for me, even with my strange habits and body features. I could have been born into one of the families from Wandermere, the ones that hate demi-humans. I could have been killed at birth, sold off, tossed in a river, and many other kind of horrible things, but no, I was given a chance to live a life that I can say is truly great. While it does has its ups and downs, and my own eagerness for strength has kind of put me at crossroads, even now, as I lean against my father's chest and look out over the landscape, I can say so far my life has been great. Come on, we should head back before your mother gets mad at us. Don't worry, I will take the blame so you won't be lectured again. My father said, rubbing my head. At times like this, I can't help but want to scream out, "Father, I love you." But then I remember him leaving me high and dry earlier, so I keep it inside. That reminds me, I think I need to work with Rachel and get even with my brother as well. And so, as I hold my father's hand and walk back to our house, I am thinking up schemes on how to get revenge on my brother. Teach him to run away. When we got back to the house, my mother was indeed waiting, but she did not yell. I went to keep Rachel, who was now awake, company, while my father went to speak to my mother. I guess he was explaining things about tomorrow. The rest of the day was spent playing with my nephew and drawing on my brother's face with charcoal after Rachel got him to lay down for a nap. The entire dinner, everyone was giggling away. I drew a big fat turtle on his forehead and gave him black raccoon eyes and a mustache. Very childish, I know, but still, he deserved it. It was only until later that I heard him scream my name, so I took refuge in my mother's lap, the one place he would not dare cause trouble. In the end, all he got to see was me pull my eyelid at him and stick out my tongue. It was the next morning before daybreak that my father and I stood at the cliffside once more. We looked out towards our destination, where smoke plumes rose high into the sky. The flashing lights of magic could be seen even from where we were standing. We will start there. We will first only observe, one step at a time. And Faith, don't worry, I'll be here to help calm you down. I cannot say I was not nervous. I mean, there was always a chance of causing the same thing as before to happen. I took a deep breath and stepped off the cliff and shot forward toward the battlefield. Airwalk, airwalk. My father's voice was only a second behind mine. He was already running next to me through the air. Faith, use acceleration. Otherwise, it will take a few days to even arrive. Okay, acceleration. My body flashed as I stepped forward, disappearing from where I once was. My father was once again on my heels. We ended up traveling for an entire day and night, and only arrived at the first battlefield in the early hours of the morning the following day. We stood in the air and looked down at the battle still raging on, where two massive armies were clashing. The sound of swords striking swords, the strong scent of blood that filled the air, the cries of those who were badly injured. All of this made my little fists clench tightly. I was already feeling the call from deep within me to join the fight and kill everyone in sight. But before this urge began to take control, a big warm palm landed on top of my head. Your first task is to restrain your ancient will with everything you have. We will only watch until you're able to do so. I know if it was not for my father's hand, I would have already lost myself and would have already been in the middle of the battlefield killing friend and foe. But I have to say, as I am watching this battle rage on, I am seeing a lot of different parts of the battlefield that are just not going well for the Gravos kingdom. Father, they're going to lose. I could already see the Norian army overwhelming the Gravos kingdom army. Maybe it was because I did a surprise attack with such a big spell that the Norian army was caught off guard big time. Or maybe it was because the commander of this army was much different from the other one, but I can say the group was much more united in how they are advancing and retreating when needed. That they are. I'm surprised you can see it so well. This group of Norian soldiers has a commander with a good head on their shoulders. As for Gravos, they have the border guard's commander, Sliminian. He is a drunkard and never keeps his men in line, which is why he was put on the border. Since he is from a high-ranking noble family, they couldn't just strip him of his status since he really did not commit any serious crimes. So they sent him to the border to get rid of him. My father explained, while he may suck at commanding his men, I still have to hand it to this Sliminian man for actually showing up to fight. Thinking for a second, I quickly brought up my menu. I planned to get some military skills, just in case. But when I looked at my current status, I was kind of shocked to see how low my level was. Humanoid form. Name: Faith Cyrilia. Age 12. Level 32 dash. Race Dragonic. HP 20,000/20,000. MP Infinity. Attack Power 19600. Magic Power 19600. Status Points 445. Strength 1960. Vitality 2000. Intelligence 1960. Mind Infinity. Agility 1960. Skill Points 21. Skills: Appraisal LVL 10 max. While it was low, I at least still had 21 skill points to use. I can only guess that each of those soldiers I killed was worth little to no experience. Out of all the skills, there were 2 for major battles, military tactics, and military command. Skill points 21-1. I got both of these skills and maxed them both. I did not plan to ever join battles again, but at the same time, with how this world works, there is no telling what the future will hold. So, such skills could come in handy at any time. As soon as I maxed out both of these skills, my view of the battlefield was much different now. Even in the losing situation that the Gravos army was in, I could find 3 different routes for their victory. If they would just throw up Fog Spell and spread out instead of clustering, they could easily reduce the number of losses and gain more ground. Oh, I guess I was speaking my thoughts out loud, because my father reacted to my words. I am surprised you were able to see such a tactic. It is true that if the commander really did as you just said, they would have a chance to turn the tides. Father, I couldn't just sit by and watch this continue to happen. I mean, I have a chance to turn this war around and push the enemy back, and I wouldn't even need to raise my blade. But the main thing is I did not wish for an army who was doing such hideous acts to win this war. If they somehow took over Gavos, that would put us under the rule of a demi-human-hating kingdom that enslaves demi-humans like me. Not that I can be considered human anymore. All right, if you wish to beat back these bastards, then so be it. I can tell just keeping your mind on something else is actually helping you control your will. This could be a very good thing. Let's go. My father took my hand and tossed me up onto his shoulders before taking off towards the back of the Gravos military line. He used air walk and gently landed outside the command tent for the Gravos army. Our sudden appearance startling the soldiers standing outside. Who are you? Tell old man Sliminian that Cyrilia is here. My father didn't even flinch when the swords were pointed at him. I, who was sitting on his shoulders, looked down at him to see a smug grin on his face. I can only guess that my father has some history with this Sliminian guy. The guards looked at each other before one of them nodded to the other. Wait here, one of the guards said before turning and going inside the tent. It was then a loud banging sound was heard, followed by a yell. That bastard is here. Let him in. Father, I called out only to have my father pinch my leg lightly, making me purse my lips. He gently let me down and held my hand and pulled me into the command tent. The inside was rather big and had a large table with a huge map on it. There was an old man with a long gray beard standing at the far end of it with a few other soldiers in metal armor standing on the sides. Cyrilia, you damn brat. What are you doing here? I haven't seen you since you were, 15 years old? Sliminian, I think you're growing too old for this already. I mean, you're losing the war. I came to offer some assistance. I want you to turn over command to my daughter. My father did not even beat around the bush, his words suddenly causing an uproar in the tent. Are you insane? You want a little demi-girl to lead the bat? Ugh, a soldier yelled out, but soon found a fist in his face. Go, father. To be honest, seeing the man get hit felt really good. I wanted to hit him as well, but I kept my little fist to myself. Watch your words. My daughter is not something you could talk about when you're losing a battle. You know, the army that was near my village is no more, and it is thanks to my daughter that we could win. My father did not go into details, but the looks on the faces of the soldiers and even Sliminian's expression were priceless because they knew that our village had no army. So what will it be? Do you wish to win this war or not? Sliminian stared at my father. It seemed he was unsure what to do. He looked at me, then my father, and then back at me and asked, Little girl, what would you do to win this war? I looked up at my father, who nodded at me and gave me a little push to step forward. I took a deep breath and let it out before walking over to the table that had a huge map. I began pointing out points marked on the map as I began to explain. Here, here, and here. Right now, you are all clustered together trying to push through the enemy line. This is wrong and is making it easier for the Norian army's mages to attack you. What you should be doing is splitting up into much smaller groups. This will widen the range in which the Norian mages will have to cover. Use a fog spell in 3 groups to push forward in a frontal assault while using hit and run tactics at the side, picking off soldiers who are focusing on the frontal assault. This will weaken their flanks and allow you easier access to the mages. Once the mages are gone, the battle is ours. Our mages would only need to keep the fog spell active while using shields to protect themselves and our own people. This will not only conserve their mana, but will also allow for use of a bigger spell later on, to force the Norian mages into a corner. The Norian mages will have to work on dispelling the fog over and over, protecting their men, and also attacking. As long as their mages are kept busy with minimal loss of mana consumption on our side, we can easily turn the tides and push the enemy back. I explained the best I could. As I finished, I looked up at Sliminian, whose mouth was opening and closing. The tactic was simple and clean. It would also reduce the loss of our men because any spell cast by our mages would not block the view of our soldiers. To them, it would be like they were seeing things on a clear day while the enemy will be trapped in a fog. Cyrilia, your blood is quite amazing to have such a fine daughter. I agree to let her command. Sliminian looked up at the other men in armor and asked, What about you guys? I see no reason to say no. To be honest, even with all of us here, we thought the war was going to end up in our loss. We were all preparing to die, but with the plan she just said, it actually gives us a chance. One of the soldiers answered, I agree as well. As do I. Little miss, I apologize for my earlier words. You will be my life savior if we win this. A life debt is not something one can repay easily. I promise to help support you if you ever need my assistance. Hearing the soldier who had first said something about me being a demi-human changing his colors kind of irked me. I didn't even say anything and just waved him off. I did not wish to associate with people who disliked demi-humans. Since I have command, Sir Sliminian, can you give out the orders I just gave? It would be best if I just relayed my orders through you. I highly doubt a bunch of soldiers want to listen to a 12-year-old girl who looks 10. I did not wish to be laughed at by a group of soldiers losing their lives because I am some little girl. It is best to use an intermediary that the soldiers know and trust. No problem. This is also for the best. My men are a bit of a problem. I watched as Sliminian shook his head with a bitter smile. I guess his men were a handful. It is not surprising, as most of the people sent to the border areas were people that caused too many issues or did things they shouldn't have in the capital. Those sent to the borders usually never got to leave the border unless they died. Good. I will be counting on you. I will watch the battlefield from the sky to keep a close eye on the progress. Make sure the mages know that the fog is to only block the view of the enemy, not our troops. This was the most important part of our attack. The spell for the fog should only blind the enemy, not us. Otherwise, it would be pointless to even use it. I will be sure to make this clear. But you said you were going to watch from the sky. Sliminian seemed to be confused by my words. My father and I will be in the sky overhead. I will relay orders to you from the sky using magic telepathy. Don't worry, I will be sure we win no matter what. Losing was not an option, at least not for me. I did not wish to see the Norian army advancing anymore. If we did not stop them here, there was no telling how many more troops would cross the border. If a demi-human enslaving kingdom took over, I would be in trouble. It was not that I did not trust our kingdom, it's more of I did not wish for that slim chance we might lose to happen. Sliminian, you better hurry and stop asking questions. My father cut in. It was true that every second counted. All right, Sliminian did not ask anything more before dishing out orders to the others. I walked outside with my father before the both of us hopped into the air. We got to a decent height and looked down at the battlefield to see things were still looking bad. But slowly, as Sliminian got his orders out, the Gravos soldiers began falling in line. Within minutes, a massive, dense layer of fog covered the battlefield, blocking Norian soldiers' view. Some of the Norian mages were quick to react and casted a wind spell to clear them away. But before they even got to see through the thick layer of fog, it was replaced with another fog spell. Not bad. Sliminian's men are moving as he ordered. I guess for a drunkard who has a group of misfit soldiers, he really has good control over them. Faith, what do you think? My father asked. His eyes were shining. He seemed to be really excited about this new discovery he made about me. To be honest, it was not so bad sitting back and watching the plan I had schemed up working so well. The Gravos soldiers were easily executing my plan without issue. There were 3 groups of 5 making a push through the middle of the Norian army, while the rest of the men were working on weakening the sides by picking off any stragglers and then retreating back. If one of the men in the middle got injured, they would retreat back to get healed, and someone else would take their place. This tactic was working so well that even I, who came up with it, was surprised. Because the fog was blocking the vision of the Norian army, those in the fog were slowly beginning to be thrown into chaos. This was all to my plan, and I was happy to see it. The best part of this plan was the mages were able to reduce the amount of mana they were using. Since both sides had already used up a lot of mana, mana itself would become the deciding factor of this battle. I think the Norian army will soon retreat. The commander for this group of soldiers is smart. I then reached out my hand and pointed to the rear of the Norian army. See, they're already pulling back. This is good because it will give us time to recuperate and heal the injured. The mages can also recover their mana. If they do fully retreat for the time being, then we have fully won this fight. However, the war is far from over. Sadly, with the condition that the Gravos army is in, they were in no shape to be chasing after the enemy to try to pick off as many as they can. Before anyone did do such a thing, I quickly sent Sliminian a message. On my word, have your men hold the line and do not give chase. Only kill those within the fog still. I will send word, young Mississippi. Hearing Sliminian speaking so respectfully to me sent shivers down my spine. He was an old scruffy man, way above my years, and was calling me young Mississippi. Maybe if he was dressed as a butler, I could take it, but he was scruffy and mean-looking. Well, maybe if this was some kind of Yakuza family, this would be normal. 2 hours passed before the Norian army pulled a full retreat. Luckily, this battle did end up as I expected. Healers should be healing the injured. Battle mages should be resting and recovering their mana. The infantry should be taking shifts and looking for enemy movement. Rest while you can. As I yelled out orders, Sliminian was repeating them to make sure his men listened. I looked out over the battlefield and sighed, seeing all the dead. I could only hope the Gravos kingdom would at least send money back to their families. Surprisingly, this whole entire time, while watching the bloodshed and smelling the thick iron scent of blood, I did not once feel my ancient will react. It was as if my concentration on the battle as a commander had actually suppressed it fully. Another thing I found was that I was actually really enjoying coming up with battle plans. It was a fulfilling feeling to see my plans play out so perfectly. Father. My father looked down at me with a warm smile. I have a feeling he already knew what I was about to say. Would it be possible for someone like me to join the knights of our kingdom and work my way up through the ranks? I wondered if I could one day really become a commander of my own army. It is a kind of spur-of-the-moment thought, but after this one battle, I really did enjoy this kind of thing. I did not see why not. The Dragon Knights, the most prestigious Royal Knights Brigade, is commanded by a demi-humana, a tigerkin named Fromos. He has been in service for over 100 years and has helped Gravos push back many invasions. My father's answer gave me a light at the end of a dark tunnel. I never thought Gravos would allow such high-ranking demi-human. But Faith, to become a knight, you must first go to the Magic Academy and graduate. Only then can you join any of the knight orders. For someone like you who is good both in sword and magic, you should be able to easily enter the track for Magic Knights and become the top of your class. Magic Knights, I have heard about them before. They were the best of the best, both sword and magic. While normal knights could use some magic while they fought, a Magic Knight was on a different level. They were just as good as a mage in magic and as good as any knight with a sword. They were an unstoppable force, and anyone who graduated from the Magic Academy as a Magic Knight will be given a title based on their ranking within the school. It is said that first place will allow even a commoner to become a Viscount. To become a Magic Knight, I could kill so many birds with one stone. Father, how does one join the Magic Academy? This was the biggest issue. From what I know, it cost a lot to join, so I was unsure how I could even go to such a place. This is not a problem. You just need to bring Silminian to victory, and you'll be offered a reward from His Majesty. So let's work hard and push back the enemy, shall we? It seemed my father was more scheming than me. I think he planned right from the beginning to get me this chance to get into the Magic Academy, and I really do need to thank him for it. This was a golden opportunity. The Magic Academy was a treasure trove of knowledge, as well as me being able to maybe make some friends. But why do I feel like this is the start of some bad Otome game? Well, if a bunch of handsome men do throw themselves at me, I can always just beat them up. Give them the old one too. Well, if they are not annoying, I wouldn't mind being friends. But if it's a relationship they are seeking, then they'll be waiting for all eternity. Not that any of that would ever happen. With my luck, I would get the one guy who has some kind of strange fetish chasing after me. And my current looks do not help either. I still look like a little girl, no older than 10. Sir Silminian, how are the men? I asked as soon as I saw Silminian walking in. He was covered in dirt and sweat. Morale is high thanks to you. We were on the verge of being defeated, but your commands led us to being able to push the enemy back. On behalf of my men and I thank you. Silminian words held sincerity. I can tell he was very grateful for my help. I just wished he stood a bit further away because he stunk. The war is not over yet. We still need to work on the next plan. I already could imagine what the commander of the Norian army was thinking. What are the reports from the soldiers, keeping an eye on the enemy? Silminian straightened his back and walked over to the map and began moving the pieces he had placed down. Here is where they are camped out. It seems they were also recuperating. The first battle lasted a while, and we took the most damage before you showed up. The tactics we used helped even the fight, although we are still outnumbered. I rubbed my chin. I leaned back in the chair I was sitting in and fell into thought. The enemy will probably try to steal our tactics, which is what I want. Dash. I smiled, which turned a little evil. My father looked at me and rubbed my head. What do you have planned now? It's simple. The enemy will waste their mana keeping the fog up, while we will not try to counter the fog spell at all. Instead, we will do this. I stood up and began moving the pieces on the map that represented us. They were nothing more than a few chess pieces. When the enemy enters the fog, our mages will create a large 100-foot tall earth wall. We will trap as many enemy soldiers as we can, and only then will we dispel the fog and take the enemy's heads. Although to get as many as possible, we will need one group of brave and quick men to act as bait. Our mages will only worry about putting barriers on them to protect them from attacks. Don't worry about protecting our mages. I will handle that. As long as we can cut off a big group of the enemy's forces, we will be able to deal a heavy blow to their numbers. Young miss, you have really shown me a new light. Your plans all seem to be perfectly flawless in design. Silminian praised me, but I couldn't help but sigh because these plans would never be any good if I did not have the skills for it. Military command and military tactics were truly meant to be used together. I do not need praise. I just need you and your men to carry out my orders. Keep a close eye on the movements of the Norian army. As soon as they begin to move, we will as well. I may sound arrogant, but I really did not want his praise. I just wanted everything to run smoothly. My future was at stake here. After Silminian left to go carry out my orders, my father placed his big hand on my head. How are you feeling? Is your ancient will staying dormant? No sign of it. But after this next battle, I will need to join the fight as well. I need to make sure everything is under control, no matter the situation. If I am on the battlefield and am thinking of how to turn the tides or how to successfully infiltrate the enemy's rear line, I might be able to suppress it. While I'm not doing anything, my ancient will is staying quiet, but I still needed to test it while in battle, close up, right in the thick of it. Should I join you on the battlefield? My father asked. I looked up at him and smiled while shaking my head. Nope. I need to keep an eye on everything. If something strange happens, I will need you to let me know as soon as possible. While I might be able to keep an eye on the battlefield with detection magic, it was not ideal. Having my father be my eyes in the sky was much better. Then I will make sure I do not let you down. My father's words were always reassuring. He has never once let me down in my life. It was not until the early morning of the next day, just before sunrise, that the call to battle was heard. The Norian army attacked us once again, probably hoping to catch us off guard. And, just like I had guessed, as soon as they got close enough, they casted a fog spell to cover part of the battlefield. Now the show was truly about to begin. I stood in the sky with my father watching the movements of not only the front lines, but also the rear. I could see the mages getting ready to cast some big attack. Silminian, have our pulling group enter, then quickly retreat. No one is to remain in the fog after counting for 2 seconds. Silminian didn't even say a word back as he began passing on my orders. While I knew the mages could easily cast a spell in under a second, there was still a lag time between the cast and activation. This was why I said enter for 2 seconds. That lag time would be enough to keep making our enemies waste mana on an area of effect spell, which cost 5 times the mana than a normal single-shot spell. Seconds later, a massive flame circle was cast engulfing the fog. Not a single one of my men were in the fog, meaning it was a pure waste of mana. My father let out a laugh. Huh, did you see that? Look, the mages are being cursed at by their commander. My lips curled up seeing this. Being yelled at like this for wasting so much mana was just lowering the mages' morale. This will hopefully cause problems as the battle goes on. A commander who yells at and degrades his soldiers is only asking to be rebelled against. Whether it is turning against them or rebelling by not listening to orders, in the end it will cause the enemy's fighting prowess to suffer. Sadly for our side, though, we had yet to execute my plan. As I continued to watch the enemy's movements, I was starting to see a pattern. Father, is it just me, or are they all trying to force the left side? My father looked out towards where I was pointing and frowned. You are right. Why would they be doing that? I have a bad feeling. The enemy's movements could be considered a tactic, but only a tactic if you have reinforcements coming. As I realized this, I quickly swept the area with my detection magic, and sure enough, another group of Norian soldiers was making their way here. Silminian, stop sending men to the left and pull back. Gather everyone in one place. I will shield you all. There is incoming from our right flank. Father, help the stragglers on the right. I will go help on the left and allow our men to fall back. We cannot lose a single soldier. We were already low on numbers to begin with. Now that the Norian army had reinforcements, it was not going to be an easy fight for us. While I may be able to fight them off myself, the issue still stands that I have to protect those under my command first and foremost. If they die here, there would be no meaning to victory. On it, my father did not question my orders at all and quickly went to the right flank to help those who were injured and needed assistance retreating. I even thought I saw a big smile on his face as he took off. It made me wonder if he had been itching to fight this entire time. As for me, I was headed to the left flank where our men were trying to fight while retreating. My plan was now all messed up. We never even got to execute it due to the change on the battlefield. As I made my way to the front lines, I bit my thumb. It was vexing. My plan would have been perfect if not for the interference. But this is my own fault for being too cocky. I had not taken into account all of the scenarios. While I have enough knowledge to become a great commander, my problem is inexperience. I muttered to myself as I landed on the battlefield, sword drawn. My appearance startled the Norian soldiers, but the Gravos soldiers all gave me a grateful look. It seems Silminian had told them about me. Everyone quickly fall back. Earth wall. I created a giant wall the length of the left flank, cutting off a huge chunk of the Norian soldiers from the rest. I heard a roar of cheers from the Gravos soldiers. It seemed this simple spell was enough to boost their morale big time. Enough cheering and gather up. Kill who you can as you retreat, but never stop moving your legs. I rushed into the Norian soldiers and began cutting them down. I had no time to even think about killing or anything like that. My mind was always on keeping my soldiers alive. When I saw one about to be attacked, my hand would wave and a barrier would appear in front of them, giving them time to back away. My sword never stopped once as I danced across the entire front line of the battlefield. Faith, we have gathered. My father's voice rang out in my ears. I looked across the muddy, blood-soaked battlefield and sighed before turning to my own men and waving my hand. For grand dome barriers formed over and around them. These were the same kind of barriers that could stop grand fall. Now, then, I should also join them. I also needed to come up with a new plan. And to do that, I needed to get a better grasp on the situation. And so now we are surrounded. Not that it matters. With me here, there is no way for anyone to be able to penetrate our barriers. I was able to figure out where this other group of Norian soldiers came from. It seems the battle to our north ended with a small group of Gravo's soldiers losing. It's sad, yes, but there is nothing that can be done. The ones that were fighting the Norian armies were no different than the men at Cerelia village. And as I said, we are now surrounded by over 60,000 soldiers at least. Maybe even more. I was currently sitting around a campfire drinking tea one of the soldiers had in their pack. Yes, I was drinking tea. Why? Because it was the best way to not only boost morale for my men if I was calm and relaxed, but also cause the enemy watching us hang around like we were not surrounded would begin to get impatient. And when people get impatient, they do stupid things. At least, this was what I was hoping for. I mean, if I could get a few of those soldiers to barge into barriers I've set up, I can make it so they can indeed enter but never get out, well, not alive anyway. But currently, I need to come up with a new plan. When fighting a prolonged battle, it is the one who runs out of supplies and ammo first that will lose. I had a long stick and was drawing a map of the field in the dirt in front of me. I was surrounded by my father, Silminian, and the squad leaders. The other soldiers were busy gathering what supplies we had. We would need to begin rationing if this fight goes on for too long. At least on the surface, this is what it looked like. I currently had a few mages good with earth magic making a tunnel to our camp. It would just take time for them to get there. As long as we have a connection to our camp to resupply us, we can last in this encirclement for a long time. Although we could also retreat through this tunnel, it would be a foolish move and would end up killing us all. One earth spell would be all the enemy would need to kill us. I am actually splitting my thought process into 3 different directions. I have 2 detection magic spells going, one to watch the enemy, and one to keep an eye on the mages digging the tunnel. And while doing that, I was trying to come up with a counterattack. From what I can tell, they have quite a few mages, at least 1,000 of them. Maybe more, as it is hard to pinpoint them if they are mixed in with the soldiers. The commanders of both armies are currently talking under a barrier that wards off detection magic. The Norian soldiers are watching us like we are rabbits waiting to be captured and brought home to be stewed. Now that I think about it, rabbit stew does sound good. My mind wandered a bit, but this caused the big smelly men around me to laugh out loud. The issue I was having was the tight formation both armies had around us. With how outnumbered we are, it would be difficult to try to push our way out. I could try to make a clear path for us, but that would mean trying to be in 2 places at once and risking the lives of my men. I already asked my father if I should just take things into my own hands since it came down to it, but he told me no. I should try to make it so that the men under me will get a sense of pride knowing they helped take down a huge army. It would also look better on me when the report is sent to the king. This, of course, made things more difficult for me. As I ran over scenario after scenario, I kept ending up with a large number of losses on our side, and I refused to allow for that. And as a commander, I should be in the back directing and not taking action myself. I could be considered the final line of defense. A good commander can bring their troops victory without ever stepping foot on the battlefield. And since I have added becoming a commander to my list of things to do, I will not do things half-heartedly. Now, if I were still just thinking of going out and wandering the world like some lost soul, I would just do what I needed to do. But now it was very different. Coming up with proper strategies that will overcome all odds is something I really enjoy. I think I just thought of something good. I realized that I was thinking too inside the box. Just like with magic and how I have always thought outside the norm, like with fusion magic, I could easily do the same here and now. Fusion magic does not need to be cast by a single person. No, a spell combined with someone else's spell can be considered a placebo fusion magic as well. Faith, You got that smile on your face that tells me you are about to break the normality of society again. My father teased. I turned and stuck my tongue out at him. I guess you could say that. I stood up, pulled him down to my height, and whispered into his ear so he could understand where my idea came from. I couldn't help but smile when I saw his eyes shoot wide open. Can we do that? My father asked. We could try. The worst that can happen is that the spells clash and it all fails. Then we just need to hide out in our little area and work up something new. But if it does succeed, we will have a way to wipe out the entire Norian army, or at least a good portion of them. I explained. Young miss, can you tell us what you have planned? Silminian eyes were glowing once again as he hovered over me. I kind of wanted to take a few steps back away from him, but I needed to explain things clearly to everyone. So I quickly moved back to my seat. Gather all our mages. They all need to hear this as well. This was a plan that involved them, so they needed to hear it in fine detail, because I will not be able to go over it during the fight. Because in order to pull this off, I will be very busy taking over the job of shielding my men. It took 5 minutes for all the mages to gather together. And only then did I begin explaining things. Okay, first off, we will be doing what I like to call elementary fusion magic. I pointed at the ground with my stick and made a few holes. In these locations, we will have 50 mages at each location casting wind magic that will blow out in a wide cone in front of them. The other mages will split up and join the other mages who are casting wind. You will then cast Fireball and Stone Spear into their wind magic. You will keep casting them until you run out of mana or the enemy has begun to retreat. Basically, how this works is we will use the wind magic to increase the damage and speed of the fireballs and earth spears. Now, I'm not saying this will work 100%. This plan might fail, and we will need to huddle up under the barrier again. But if it does work, we will be able to deal a decisive blow to the enemy. If it does not work, we will sit back and relax while you recover your mana. I looked up at all the mages and asked, are you all willing to give it a try? This was important. While they would be forced to do it anyway, even if they did not want to, but forcing them to do something could also cause them to secretly reduce the amount of mana they used in their spells, which was not something I wanted them to do. We will follow young Mrs. Plan. One of the mages yelled. This was followed up by more yells. Hearing so many willing to cooperate, let me breathe a sigh of relief. Good. I will need you to pump each spell with as much mana as you can without it blowing up in your face. We need to make sure we do as much damage to our enemy as possible. And do not worry about the enemy barriers. I will take them out. High-ranking Spell Dispel. A magic that not many could cast due to its high mana consumption. The stronger the spell you're trying to dispel, the more mana you needed to use, which was why it was hardly used on the battlefield. I had no idea about this spell until earlier when Silminian mentioned it to me. He even knew the equation for it. It was a spell all commanders needed to know about. Of course, this kind of spell could only be learned in the academy. Young miss, what will our soldiers be doing? Silminian asked. They will be defending the mages. All soldiers who have mana will be on barrier duty to keep the mages safe, as they will not have time to cast defensive barriers. All soldiers who cannot cast spells will be on cleanup duty. If any Norian soldier breaks through the attack, they will take them down. I took a deep breath and focused on my detection spell that was watching the mages underground and smiled. Things are going smoothly so far. I let out my breath and clapped my hands. All right, let's get into formation. While everyone else was breaking to get into positions, I pulled on my father's sleeve. Father, I'm not sure if this will work or not. It's fine. It is worth a try. If it works, we will be winning a losing battle. If not, we could just think of something else. My father ruffled my hair, causing me to close my eyes and clear my thoughts. Then let's pray it does work. I did not want our morale to drop any. A change had happened on the battlefield. The air was thick, and the atmosphere was tense. I could tell the enemy was confused at the sudden change in our current formation. Never in their life would they ever think that a trapped enemy would launch a large-scale attack. But this was also what I was counting on. As soon as my barriers dropped, we would be launching our attack and hope that it will be successful. If it is, then we will have victory in our hands. If it isn't, I will need to act quickly. This was why I was currently standing in the air to get a better view of the battlefield. My detection magic was spread out all over. I was making sure to catch each movement while I protected my men who would be at the forefront. I gazed over my men, who were all in position, all staring intently at the barriers and Norian soldiers in front of them. I had to give them credit for their courage, and I had to thank them for trusting me with their lives. I will do my utmost to protect them all, no matter what. It may seem like a promise that one would be unable to fulfill, but I will do my best to keep this promise. War was not a game. I know this well. Coming from Earth, I never once experienced the hardships of war. But seeing it with my own eyes, and even fighting in the midst of it, I fully understand the feeling of wanting to protect something. Whether it is family, friends, land, your king, or money, it all held meaning to the people putting their lives on the line. Looking down at these brave men who had gathered together, even if they were troublemakers, they all had a reason to be here, and not a single one has tried to run away. And the one who was responsible for keeping these men alive by coming up with the correct plans was me, and me alone. I took a deep breath and glanced at the men waiting for my order. I slowly let it out as I raised my hand and lowered it. To arms. On my words, the barriers collapsed. I watched as the mages began casting their wind spells. Massive hurricane force winds kicked up the dirt, rocks, and debris, sending it flying at the enemy. But this was not the critical point. I clenched my little fist as I watched the mages behind the wind casting mages begin firing fireballs and earth spears into the wind. Dash. Boom. Never in my life would I have expected the results I was seeing. The fireballs turned the wind spells into a raging inferno that was like an explosion firing out in a wide cone. And within this inferno, hidden in the raging flames, were spears of rock flying at an accelerated speed. I could hear the screams of the Norian soldiers that were being burned alive. I could smell the melting of metal, burnt clothes, and flesh being cooked all together. It sickened me. It made my stomach turn, but I pushed what threatened to come up down. I had no regrets. Just like before, when I wiped out the Norian army that came to my doorstep, I felt no remorse for my actions. Faith, should we move forward? My father's words broke me out of my thoughts. I looked around and saw the enemy setting up barriers around their men. I waved my hand, dispelling them all, before turning to my father and nodding. We should. Our mages have plenty of mana, and this plan is working far past my expectations. If we push forward and keep this up, we will be able to send the enemy packing. I did not waste time before sending Silminian my orders. He quickly relayed them to the others, and our men began pushing forward in all four directions. The Norian mages were doing their best to try to protect their men with barriers that they could no longer cast any actual spells due to me continuously dispelling them. The entire enemy line was falling apart, and their commanders seemed to be at a loss of what to do. Their Norian soldiers were running for their lives, not caring for any orders. Tens of thousands of soldiers were incinerated just like that. With my men now pushing forward and the enemy in disarray, they could safely push back without worrying about any counterattacks. I feel like I cheated somehow. It is the results of your planning. If you did not come up with such a plan, we would have been stuck in the encirclement for who knows how long. This plan has won us this battle. My father picked me up and placed me on his shoulder. Like this, we gazed down at the battlefield and watched as the enemy tried to retreat. As I looked around at our victory, my eyes landed on the two commanders who were also trying to flee the wave of flames. Father, let's take a few prisoners. Oh, what do you plan to do with them? My father seemed confused by my suggestion. We need to know how many more armies they plan to send over the border and how many have already crossed. If we can gather the intel needed, we can use it to make further plans. I do not really understand the politics of this world, but I do know that any and all intelligence that can be gathered is very important. If they had many more armies the size of the ones we just fought, then we would be able to send this information to those in charge and let them deal with it accordingly. Even if you capture them, they will probably never speak. Those who are in command and in the know are too prideful. They would rather die than betray their kingdom. It is the knight's way. I could understand what my father was saying. This was a world where one's word was law. If, let's say, I said I would marry so and so when I grew up, Even if that person turned into some horrible person, I would need to keep my word and marry them anyway, or else I would be the one looked down upon by society. And a knight's loyalty was no different than their life. They give their word to protect the kingdom. And a knight's word is like a heavenly law to them. They never break it. But this was not to say there was no way to make someone talk. As of now, I was no knight, which means I can use unknightly methods to make one talk. I'm starting to think I'm walking down a dark path. I need to think of something else. I held my head in my hands, wondering what I can use as a means to make someone's lips squeak. I started thinking of the methods people used back on Earth to make people talk. That did not lead to torture. Truth serums. Hypnosis. Wait, that will work. Figured something out? My father was grinning with curiosity. I'm starting to think I have become a source of entertainment for him. We will use a hypnotic illusion spell. It was an intermediate spell, but the runic equation was a bit tricky. Confusion. A spell that messed with the target's mind. If used right, it can get people to see what you want them to see and will control them to a certain extent. All I needed to do was make them believe that their king was standing in front of them and make them give a report. You were talking about confusion? Faith, are you sure? That spell is not easy to use. I heard it can also backfire and put you into a state of confusion as well. And unless you can break out of it yourself, you would be stuck like that. What my father said was true. Because the runic equation was so difficult to write in such a short time, many have messed it up, and in some cases, instead of just failing to cast, it would cause the spell to backfire on them, putting the caster into a confused state for all eternity. The caster alone would have to break themselves out of a confused state. No one else would be able to cancel the magic on them, unless they had someone use Dispel on them. And to find someone who could use Dispel, you had better chances of actually canceling it yourself. Yes, I know it is dangerous, but it is the best way to get the information we need without needing to resort to torture. I, for one, would prefer not to do such things. I will kill, but I will not torture someone. I had to have a line that I will never cross. I understand that, but the risk is too great. I won't allow it. My father seemed dead set on not allowing me to use this spell, but it was the only way. Father, did I not cast Confusion Mist? It's just as difficult, and I cast it on a large scale. The Confusion spell itself is no different. I am 100% sure I can cast it. I will even draw out the magic circle a few times beforehand to make sure I have it down. You can watch me to make sure I do not make any mistakes. I hoped I could convince him, or else I am sure my father will make Silminian and the rest torture the commanders. 10 times. You have to do it successfully 10 times. The flight home took a few hours since we used accelerate magic to speed ourselves up. I say fly because I was using my wings, but my father was hopping through the air. Even with my wings, which makes me faster than running, my father was still keeping up. Lilith, don't you think you are being unfair? We are all from the same village. A voice roared as my father, and I reached the entrance to Cerelia village. Old man, let me tell you now, if you and those bastards behind you even try to take a single step into this village, I will cook you all. My mother's voice quickly followed. It was just as loud or even louder and held a firm, threatening tone. I couldn't help but frown. I recognized the man's voice right away. It was none other than the village elder for Wandermere Village. Lilith, that is enough. Don't think just because you are good with magic that I have no way to counterattack. The war is at our doorstep, and you are not even willing to save fellow humans. I could only sigh. Fellow humans? Could people who try to lynch a 7-year-old be considered human? I want to step forward and go to my mother's aid when I felt my hand being grabbed, pulling me back. I turned to see my father shaking his head at me. Your mother is not weak. If you look closely, there is a tad bit of excitement in her eyes. She has not been in a fight since she was young and reckless. To tell you the truth, how we met was actually a lie. We just didn't want our past to influence you and your brother. Dash. My eyes opened wide. Wasn't it that they were childhood friends? Didn't they grow up together in this village? Your mother and I are from this village. It is just that both our families were a bit special. Your mother, for one, is a descendant from one of the great mages who shook the world a few hundred years ago. Her family has always had strong magic. As for me, As you know, I am a descendant of the dragonkin, and if I am angered, I will take on a few features of a dragonkin, like scales and sharp teeth. Back then, when I first met your mother, we got into a fight. And well, she beat the hell out of me using strengthening magic. And I, with my pride at the time, did not like the fact that I lost. So, I kept challenging her. Each time I challenged her, I ended up with my face in the dirt and my butt in the air. As we grew older, I began seeing your mother as not just someone I must defeat, but someone I wanted to court. Both of our parents always told us to find the ones we love. I guess at the time, they already had an idea that your mother and I would end up together. But it was not easy. When I finally confessed my feelings to your mother, she told me flat out that if I cannot beat her in a fight, she will never marry me. I watched as my father gazed lovingly down at my mother. I now understood why my father was afraid of my mother. Even if he was stronger than her now, he was completely traumatized by being beaten by her since he was little. And for this, I give my mother 2 thumbs up. Good job, mother. You trained father well. So, how did you finally win? I was very curious if he was always being beaten down and he still married my mother. Then he must have done something. I kind of cheated. Anyway, it's a story that should not be told to one's kids. My father scratched his nose. I think in the dim light of the evening sun, I could even see a hint of blush on his face. But now that he said something, I was very curious. It was at times like these that I wished there were spells for reading someone's mind. But knowing my father, he would probably detect me using magic instantly, and I would be caught red-handed. So I will just leave it as a story I will never know. At any rate, the thought of love blooming out of being beaten up has confirmed one thing for me. My father is a 100% pervert masochist. The mighty image of my father was slowly shattering. Oh, dear father, why must you be this way? Faith, if you do not wipe that look that says that you are pitying me off your face, I will flick your forehead every day on the hour, every hour. I quickly turned away. Forehead flicks hurt. I pursed my lips and turned back to the scene below. Currently, the village elder's face is turning purple. Even veins were popping out on his forehead. Old man, I will say this again. Your Wandermere village has nothing to do with our Cerelia village. You may call the people behind you humans, but to me, they are just monsters in human skin. I will give you to the count of 10 to get these people out of here, or this place here and now will be a true battlefield. You, Lilith, you better not go too far. We're in time of war. You should be helping others. The village elder's words may seem righteous, but to me, they were just a senile old man throwing a tantrum. But I knew one thing. Neither side was going to budge, and the village elder seemed like he wanted to anger my mother. Things did not seem right. Father, something seems off. I'm going down. I couldn't just sit anymore. You're right. Go ahead. With my father's consent, I flapped my wings and floated down to the ground, landing in between the village elder and my mother. Faith, my mother cried out with a bright smile. I thought you and your father. Mother, before we catch up, we need to deal with the matter at hand. I turned and gazed coldly at the village elder. His old eyes landed on mine. I could see a hint of disgust within them. I guess he blames me for ruining his village. Do you have an issue? Why are you bringing a bunch of demi-haters to Cerelia village? We do not accept people who are prejudiced against demi-humans. So turn around and leave. You, little girl, you should show some respect to your elders. Our kingdom is at war with the Norian kingdom. We should be working together, not against each other. Also, this is no place for little girls to be speaking, so step aside while I talk to your mother. I was really trying not to kill this old man in front of me. He really dared to push me aside when he's been doing nothing but trying to talk his way into the village. I have no say. I'm sorry, but this is where you are wrong. I am in my village. My father is the village elder of Cerelia village, and as his daughter, I have the right in his absence to step in when an old bass man is trying to weasel his way in. I do not know what you came here for, but I do know that you are aware that the army that was at our doorstep is already gone. Killed. Every last one of them was killed by me and me alone. But you still dare try to use war for selfish gains. I couldn't help but snort at the old man. I could tell by the fact that he only brought men with him that he had come here to do something he would never do if my father was around. Did he think the people in this village were weak? I'm starting to wonder if he fell and bumped his head and lost some of his sanity. Before, he was at least kind of sane, even if it was only by a small percent. I watched as the old man's face grew darker and darker. Not that I cared. He was already lucky that I had not sent him and his goons flying yet. What? Nothing to say? If not, turn around and go back. I would like to spend some time with my mother after all. And to be honest, looking at your hypocritical face makes me sick to my stomach. I know I was being harsh, but I really dislike this old man. Him and everyone from Wandamere. It sickens me to know he waited for my father and I did not be around to bring people here. My guess is that he waited to make sure we were really gone before cooking up some kind of plan. Did he think my mother was a pushover? The village elder did not respond. He looked at me as if he wished he could murder me before turning around and waving for his goons to follow him. I snorted once more and waited for him to reach the slope before casting an ice spell on the ground. You little brat. Doing this was fine. I'm still young after all, body-wise, that is. But I'm a petty person, just like my father. Ha ha ha. I heard my mother laughing from behind me. Faith, you truly are my daughter. I also cast an ice spell just now. I turned around with my mouth open in shock as my mother embraced me. The pettiness runs in the family. I'm so glad you're back safe and sound. You have no idea how worried I was. I shook my head and smiled while hugging my mother back. But this only lasted a second before she pushed off me and asked, "Where is your father?" "Up there." I pointed up, causing my mother to tilt her head up to see her husband standing in the sky with his arms crossed across his chest. Yeah, my father was trying to act cool to impress my mother. "Mother, just ignore him. Let's go home. I want to have a nice rest." "You're right. Let's go." My mother held my hand, and the two of us walked through the gates to the town, completely ignoring the man in the air. "Hey, wait for me." My father's panicked voice came from behind us. A few months went by since I arrived home. Word was that the royal knights pushed back the other 3 armies and wiped them out completely. It seemed that the information we got from the commander had come in handy in the kingdom, making a swift decision. What I found strange was that the kingdom had no plans to attack back. When I asked my father about this, he told me that normally only armies of that size would be used for probing. If it was going to be a full-scale invasion, the number of soldiers crossing the borders could range in the tens of millions. This alone made me realize just how populated this world truly was. But what surprised me was the lack of towns and villages as a whole. The number of people my father was talking about could fill many countries back on Earth, while in this world, it's nothing more than the size of a major city's worth of people. Luckily, things worked out, and the Gravos kingdom was spared from a full-on invasion. However, I did wonder why, if we have so many soldiers, why they're not shoring up the borders. But I guess that is a question I will leave for when I join the academy. If I get to join, that is. As for the village elder, he never came back. Now that both my father and I were here, I will say this. After everything that I learned from my father that day when the two met, it made me wonder why, if they were so strong, they could be held back so easily during the time when I was on the verge of being lynched. But after going through all my memories and everything that I've been told so far, the assumption that I have come up with is that, first, my mother is weak physically unless she can cast magic. If I am not wrong, the ladies who held her back did so before she was even able to cast a spell. My mother, unlike me, still had to write her spells in the air. As for my father, he is strong, very strong, but if caught off guard, he will definitely end up being restrained, as long as he was really outnumbered, which he was on that day. But this was just my own assumption. When I asked my father, he snorted and said he did not wish to talk about it. I could tell by the tone of his voice that his anger was self-directed. I think he was disappointed in himself. With everything settled, I have just been relaxing and enjoying some quality family time. I had originally planned to set out on my journey, but now that things have changed, I will be sitting around waiting to see if anything comes of the report that Silminian was to give to the king. Currently, I was lying on a stone wall staring up at the blue sky with a long piece of grass sticking out of my mouth. I was wearing a white blouse-type shirt and a pair of blue shorts made of a cotton-type material. My tail hung over the side of the wall, swaying back and forth while my wings spread out to my sides. I was trying to see what shapes I could see in the clouds. It was something I remembered doing when I was young back on Earth. I used to have fun trying to find different animals in the clouds. But now, all I could see were runic equations. I think my brain might have something wrong with it. I really should take more breaks from studying magic. Excuse me. A crisp, clear, noble yet soft voice entered my ears. I raised my head to see a cute young girl around my age, maybe a year younger than myself, standing there. Behind her were a bunch of knights wearing shiny metal armor with swords at their sides. What surprised me was that none of these strangers gave me any bad feelings. None of them showed any contempt for a demi-human like myself. I probably thought of this before, but was I even considered a demi-human anymore? I mean, would humans need to be called demi-dragons because they were inferior to the might of dragon? No matter how I look at it, it was all still racist, so I will just stop thinking about it, at least until it pops into my mind once again. The girl had long golden hair and purple gem-like eyes. I could tell from how she was dressed that she was probably a noble of some kind. But what confused me was why would they send a young girl was my first thought, but then it dawned on me that she may be lost. If you're trying to get to the capital, you have to follow the road down the plateau and head to the northwest along the road all the way. As long as you do not take any other turns, you will be on the right track. I learned the way to the capital from the merchants. Luckily, it was handy knowledge. The young girl seemed to be confused by my words. I stared at her for a minute before looking up at the guards to find one or the snickering, which made me realize that I might have been wrong. "You're not lost?" I asked. "Why would I be lost? I am here to see you. My name is Adele. You're a Lady Faith, are you not?" The young girl answered. She quickly adjusted her attitude after her initial outburst. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Adele. My name is indeed Faith. Is there something I can do for you?" I think I was finally understanding that my first assumption was correct. But why would they send a young girl? "Yes, I bring word from the king." Hearing this, I couldn't help but feel slightly excited. I mean, I had been waiting for this day since the end of the war. "Then please, this way. My home may be small, but it is very cozy." I motioned with my hand and began walking toward the house. Adele smiled and followed at my side. I could see her sizing me up and I her. "So, Adele, may I ask why they sent a young girl instead of a normal messenger?" "Oh, that's because the king wanted you to feel as comfortable as possible, so he did not wish to send a scary old man. But Lady Faith, I have heard that you have really outdone yourself. You not only repelled one of the invading forces on your own, but also led Sir Silminian and his men to victory as well. You are truly amazing." When Adele smiled, she had two small dimples that formed. It was very cute. "I see. Then I should thank the king for thinking of me. And Adele, I already call you by your name, so there is no need to call me lady. It makes me sound old." I heard a sound coming from behind me. I turned to see a knight who was a bit smaller than the others, covering his mouth. He looked much too young to be a knight, but I guess in this world, age was only a matter if you were capable of doing the job or not. I rolled my eyes at him and went back to talking to Adele. "Then, Faith," Adele said in a low voice, but the smile on her face twitched. I think the knight's laugh irked her. We walked into the house, in which only one guard came in with Adele, and of all of them, it was the younger knight who laughed that followed after us. "Mother, we have a visitor. It's the people from the capital." Oh, my mother came out of the kitchen. When I looked over at her, her eyes were wide, but quickly went back to normal. I cocked my head to the side, wondering why, but when I looked at Adele, things seemed to be normal. "Welcome to our home. I am Lilith Cerelia. I have already sent a message to my husband, who will be home shortly. My daughter-in-law Rachel will be out shortly with some tea." "You are too kind, Lady Lilith. My name is Adele. I do apologize for taking so long to come here, but the king and his advisors have been terribly busy with reforming things after the invasion." Adele was speaking as if they had already sent a message to the house. Was this how all nobles talked? It is fine. To be honest, it would not matter if anyone did come, as it was something we should have done. My mother was speaking very differently than normal. It made me wonder if she drank bad milk. It was just this morning that she was yelling about how ungrateful the king was and how long did it take to come say a word of gratitude after my daughter put her life on the line to defend this unappreciative kingdom. So seeing her act so cordial made me wonder if my mother had her body switched with another. Lady Lilith, I think you look down on your daughter's achievements. If the kingdom were to ignore such a genius, then there would be something very wrong with this kingdom. You jest, Lady Adele. I have never once in my life looked down on my daughter. My mother's eyes were scary. I have no idea why it seemed like she was having some kind of battle with Adele. I do apologize if my words came out wrong. When I grow up and have a daughter of my own, I hope to have one as cute as Lady Faith. Adele's words made me blush and a little happy. I mean, being called cute by an outsider, even if it held no meaning, still made me feel good. I mean, at least I thought I looked cute. Sorry, I'm late. My father's voice cut the tension in the air. He walked in covered in sweat and dirt. He had been out in the fields. I turned to look at him, and for some reason, he had the same shocked expression on his face for a split second that quickly disappeared. Sir Sander, my name is Adele, and I am here on the king's order. I watched as Adele rose from her seat and gave a curtsy. A real live curtsy. That was enough to tell me that Adele was definitely at least a noble, but I wonder why she didn't give my mother a curtsy. This puzzled me. Did she fall for my father? But she is only 11 at most. As I scratched my head over my own stupid thoughts, the conversation in front of me continued. Lady Adele, it is a pleasure. Please do not stand on ceremony. The Cerelia family does not like all that fancy etiquette stuff. Dash. My father walked over, sat next to me, and leaned forward while folding his hands in front of him. So what is the word from His Majesty? The king has said that he wants your daughter, Lady Faith, to join the Royal Magic Academy during the next enrollment as a special student. She will get all the same treatments as a high-ranking noble and will have a full allowance as well that is provided by the royal family. The king is very grateful that Lady Faith was willing to put her life on the line at such a young age and that such a genius has actually appeared in our kingdom. He wishes to help her grow at any expense. He has also decided that he would like to meet Lady Faith as well. But he said he will wait until after she has joined the academy and has gotten used to her life in the capital. He worries he would make Lady Faith too anxious. He said he would award her the rank of knight. But laws for titles and ranks are only given when enough achievements are earned, and they have finished their training at the Magic Academy. I was trying my best to hide my enthusiasm. I just heard the magic words, Royal Magic Academy. I was ready to jump for joy. This was what I was aiming for. Going to the Royal Magic Academy was my main goal. Being able to learn the things I cannot hear in the village was a huge step closer to maybe completing not only my fusion magic, but also a step closer to gaining the status needed to begin my path to becoming a commander. I see. My father leaned back and closed his eyes. I looked at him, then at Adele, whose eyes seemed to be nervous. Why would she be nervous if this was something the king himself was giving out? The air was tense for almost 5 minutes until my father opened his eyes and leaned forward once again. Lady Adele, I hope there will be no mishaps. If something happens to my daughter, Sir Sander, the king has already stated that Lady Faith is to be treated well. You have the royal family's word that if anything happens, Lady Faith will have the royal family's backing. Adele quickly interrupted my father. I watched a smile appear on his lips. It seemed this was the promise he was looking for. Then I will leave my daughter in your care. When will she leave? My father asked. She is to make her way to the capital before the next entrance exam in 6 months. While she is automatically part of the academy as a special student, she still needs to take the exam, so we can see where to place her. No matter what her scores are, she will be allowed to join. But I think with her abilities, Lady Faith will definitely be put into a top class. Adele answered, which confused me. There is a test to join the academy? I was starting to get nervous. I have read every book in the house, but would it be enough to pass the exam? Yes, while there are some academic courses, it is mainly based on the strengths you showed on the battlefield. The Royal Magic Academy is there for talented individuals who want to better themselves and get a head start above the rest. Adele explained, but to me, this explanation did not make sense. If the academy is for those who want to better themselves, then why does it cost so much to enter? Let's say I never once stepped foot on the battlefield, and my talents went unnoticed by the king, and I never got this chance to join the academy for free, but instead, I ventured to the capital and wanted to join the academy to put my skills to the test. Then what? I would not be allowed to even take the test because of its absurd high entrance fees. Would you not lose out on many talented individuals? I did have a bit of sarcasm at the end, but it really irked me when one person is talking about talent, when they might be missing many talented people, but those people could not even enter the academy due to their high fees. There was no secondary academy that others could join. It seemed a bit unfair to those with real talent and no money. If you ask me, the so-called talent is only those who can pad the pockets of those who run the academy. Does passing the test even have real meaning? Does the king not realize his words seem hypocritical? You, careful with your words, the young knight yelled out, but I only sneered at him. Did I say anything wrong? Are you going to cut me down for speaking the truth? I stared at the young knight. I wanted to see what the snickering young man from Early would really do in such a situation. To be honest, coming from Earth, while there were certainly schools that did just as the Royal Magic Academy did, there were still other options. It's fine, Adele yelled out. As she looked at the young knight, her eyebrow raised. What Lady Faith has said is actually true. And to be honest, she has said what I have always been meaning to say. It's just hard to do when so many nobles would be against it. You can keep the nobles happy by having lower institutions that are made for commoners with little to no money. You allow the commoners to go to these lower institutions, and when you find said talented individuals, you could then offer them a scholarship, just like you are with me. You can even make it so to lower cost and be able to accommodate more areas of the kingdom with more lower institutes to cover the millions that may want to join by having them do work before and after the classes. This will reduce costs by a lot, even for those who cannot pay to go. You can also give extra benefits to those who can afford to pay. This was an idea I just came up with, basically mixing public schools back on Earth with a private school you would pay for. The kids who had little to no money would be able to secure a means of training and could better themselves while doing a little work within these new academies. Even if the teachers were of a lower standard, it would be enough to educate those who wish to learn and would still benefit the kingdom in many ways. The smarter the populace was, the more innovation would come to the kingdom. The young guard seemed speechless by my words. My guess is that such a thing was never thought of. But that is only because nobles had the loudest voices. It is pure genius. Adele stood up and walked over to me, grabbing my hands, holding them in hers. Her actions caught me by surprise. Such a thing has never been thought of before and could actually allow us to truly bring huge benefits to the kingdom. It was just a thought. By doing this, you could find those hidden talents that are lost in the wind due to not having the status or money. It was the only way I could think of that would allow future genius to rise. What kingdom would not want to gather as many great minds as they could? I will bring it up with the king as soon as I get back. Lady Faith, your words of wisdom have once again helped the Gravos kingdom. Adele suddenly curtsied to me. I quickly helped her up in a fluster. Please don't do that. I am not used to such respect. Plus, I already said to call me Faith. Leave the lady out of it. To be honest, if I tried to curtsy like that, I would probably lose my balance and fall. I waved my hands back and forth. I do not think I can get used to this kind of treatment. You're truly cute, Faith, Adele said with a smile. I gave Adele a wary smile mainly, because she was giving me a strange look like I was some kind of big piece of meat. Sorry to say I'm not a wild animal. Or am I? I once again had a question just what I was exactly, whether I was an animal or not. At this moment, I felt like I was being targeted by not one but two people. For some reason, the snickering guard was also staring at me as well. So the goosebumps on my body were tripled. They got tripled due to the strange smile on the guard's face. I really couldn't wait for this messenger to leave. Thanks. You're quite cute yourself, Adele. Although I was saying this with a forced smile due to the intensity of their stares. It was true that Adele was a beautiful girl. Her hair was golden and not like a blonde golden, but a true golden color, and her purple eyes really matched well with it. She seemed more like a small little goddess than a human. You are a charmer, La. Faith, Adele replied with a sweet smile. I guess my flattery eased her up a bit because her stare was no longer as strong. Since this is how things are, then Faith will be there for enrollment. With my father agreeing to the considerations that Adele gave, I was now bound for the capital. Luckily not with Adele. I did not think I could handle being stared at for so long. The trip to the capital was a long one. Even if I were to leave today by horseback, it would probably take me at least 5 months to arrive, maybe even barely making it for the entrance test. But if I were to use magic, I could make it in less than a month. And I figured it would also give me a chance to explore a bit, so I plan to leave soon. After a few more words of pleasantries with Adele, Adele decided to take her leave. It seemed she was in a rush to head back. Outside the house, Adele was once again holding my hands, gazing into my eyes with those purple eyes that drew one's attention. Faith, I will see you in the capital. I shall also be joining you at the academy, so let's be friends, okay? Dash. I looked at the sincere smile on Adele's face and actually smiled back. For once, she was looking at me normally. I could read it in her eyes, the uncertainty and anxiousness as she asked me to be her friend. It seemed she truly wished to be my friend. At least I hoped. Having a friend is always a good thing, especially one who is able to pass on the king's words. My guess is she is at least a count, marquis, or duke's daughter. I do not know if there is some kind of inner circle title that ranks each of these nobles' titles, but I do know that either way, for an unnamed lower noble like me to have such a person come to me personally, I should feel privileged, and yet, I only feel it is a waste of resources. Sending so many knights out to protect one person when they could have just sent a messenger. I hope those knights were getting paid extra for this. Yes, let's be friends, Adele. And so I made my first real friend, I think. I will have to wait and see. So until we meet again, we are just parting acquaintances. After Adele's departure, my mother, for the first time in her life, tied me to her side and spent every waking moment with me. She knew I was going to be leaving soon. I have never once had the chance to say goodbye to people I loved and cared for until now. And just the thought of leaving my warm and loving family really pulled on my heartstrings to the point that I started to tear up. Leaving home for the first time, venturing out into the world all alone, while exciting, it was at the same time a cause of worry. Things like what happens if I meet a powerful foe that I cannot defeat. What if? Well, that was all I was worried about, really. Food and other things were easy to come by. I could just hunt for some food and cook it anywhere. Water was never a worry, and I have never been afraid of sleeping outside. I mean, if it really came down to it, I could just sleep in my dragon form. How many idiots would try to start a fight with a dragon? Actually, now that I think about it, no matter what world you live on, there will always be that one idiot. At least in the novels I read, there was always a hero who thought they were king, always stealing the cute companions from the other males in the group, and always talking about how righteous they are. I have always hated those kinds of characters. In those kinds of novels, it was the side characters that I found more attractive, like the knight who was willing to do what he could for the group while the hero played around. This was why I always liked the ones about the villains or villainous that were trying to change their fate. It usually ended up with someone who reincarnated into a book. In a way, I would not have minded reincarnating into a book myself, but this world is far from any novel I have ever read. I could be that side character who died without ever being able to show up in the novel. Maybe the lynching was my true doom. At any rate, all I know is that I was about to start my journey, and I could not be any happier yet sad. I spent another 2 weeks at home. I was preparing for my travels and stuffing my inventory with all kinds of good things like food and more food. I also made a few tents that used monster hide sewed together, then using a kind of weatherproofing glue made from monster fat that sealed it all together. I made 5 in total, just in case. You never know. My food stockpile was enough to feed all of Wandermere and Cerelia villages for a year. It was a mix of rice, forest vegetables, and lots of meat. I was even able to find some monster fish in a small pond near the other side of the plateau. They were rather big and could feed a few families. And of course, I packed a lot of clothes. My mother and Rachel also made a bunch of new clothes for me as well. And my father, he had a new set of leather armor made for me. It fit me perfectly and seemed like it would last a good while. But all good things eventually come to an end. I was standing with a large backpack on my back that I would stash away later, but kept on for appearance's sake. After all, my parents still did not know about my system. Faith, you are be careful on the road. Do not follow any strange men, even if they offer you candy. I really wanted to laugh at my mother's words, but I did not wish to get the red bottom technique before I left. She was dead serious in saying this. Don't worry, mother. I do not like candy all that much. This was true. The candy in this world was far behind in standards. While many kids like it, it was different for someone like me who had candy back on Earth. I think it is mostly due to the fact that candy here was usually just sugar cane with no flavor or flavor with honey. While it was good once in a while, the same flavors over and over got a bit much. Yes, you have always been a strange child. My mother held her cheek as she said this, as if getting lost in her memories. After a few moments, she finally smiled and pulled me into a hug. Always remember you have a home here. I will come back to visit as soon as I can. I finally couldn't stop the tears as I hugged my mother. I was crying for two reasons. I loved my mother of this world, and because I never got to say goodbye to my mother on Earth. My mother and I hugged for who knows how long. Only when we parted did she wipe her eyes and turn around. I knew she was reluctant to see me go, but I had to. You grew up so fast. It seemed like just the other day you were running around in your diaper, finding everything strange and amazing. Father, I still do that now minus the diaper part, I said with a chuckle. I hugged him tight and buried my face into his chest. My father was a good man and an amazing father. Don't get into too much trouble while I am gone. Huh, why am I the one who's getting lectured? My father let out a loud laugh as he picked me up and hugged me tightly. He swung me around a bit, which caused the others to laugh. I will surely miss everyone so much. Last but not least were my brother and Rachel. Rachel held my hands while my brother handed me another shiny object. I, of course, snatched it up as soon as I saw it. Faith, take care of yourself. You too. Take care of big sister Rachel and my little nephew. And brother, protect the village well while I am gone. I spoke in a low voice at the end. I would be gone, so one less deterrent would be gone. The village elder of Wandamere may try to act up while I was away. You can count on it. My brother nodded and ruffled my hair. I finally looked at Rachel and whispered, keep track of all the times he has wronged you. I will get back at him for you. I will have the ink ready. We both chuckled and hugged before I stepped back and looked at my amazing family. Mother, father, brother, and big sister Rachel, I am off. I walked backward a few steps with my hand behind my back before turning around and beginning my new journey. As I ran down the road, I raised my hand and waved at them. I could hear my mother and father yelling to me to travel safely from behind. I will come back here the first chance I get. Volume 2 end. I turned the corner and headed down the road that leads off the plateau. It was then that I stashed the backpack away into my inventory. It actually had nothing but clothes in it, so it was not even the slightest bit heavy. Not that it would matter. Before I could leave and officially start my journey, I had one last thing to do, to ensure the safety and security of my family. I decided to make a very small detour to Wandamere village and visit a certain old man who will love to see me. I entered the village and easily made my way to the village elder's home without a single person being able to detect me. Even as I opened the village elder's door and waltzed right in like I own the place, no one has noticed me. One may wonder why this is. Well, the answer is very simple. I put everyone to sleep. The entire village was currently sleeping. Everyone except the people dealing with the village elder. So I could easily just walk right up to the door to the village elder's study and open it right up to see an old man spitting tea out across the room. You? Why are you here? What? I answered back with a question while tilting my head. The answer is simple. Dash. I walked over and took a seat while waving for the servant to give me some tea. The old man looked as if he was about to jump across his big wooden desk at me, but sadly for him, it would be a futile attempt. I came here to tell you that I will be leaving for the capital. The king has awarded me for my duties in the war, and I will be attending the Royal Magic Academy. And do you want me to congratulate you? If it was not for you, do you think my village would be in the mess it is in now? Will my grandson be dead? The old man yelled, but I could care less. I took the cup of tea the maid gave me and took a sip. The tea was not too bad. It was a wonder how he was still getting such good things. After taking a few more sips, I put it aside, sat forward, and clasped my hands together while giving the old man a confused look. Why would I care about what happens in your village? It has nothing to do with me. I'm only here to tell you that if you do not wish for your precious village to be wiped off the map, nothing should happen to my Cerelia village. When I mean nothing, I mean, if a single incident happens, no matter how small it is, I will destroy your precious village with you along with it. Even if it is not anyone from your village's fault, I will still blame you before finding the true culprit. So always keep this in mind, no matter how long I'm gone for. Because even if you kick the bucket and you somehow get another heir to your disgusting bloodline, I will kill them and everyone else along with them. I'm sure you have seen the crater next to the cliff. I think my power is plain to see. I stood up after finishing my words and picked up the teacup once more and downed the rest of its contents before turning to the servant and giving her my thanks. Only then did I turn and leave the pale-faced old man to his thoughts. I figured I would give him this warning. This warning alone will be enough for him to realize that any schemes he may come up with will be his full undoing. He will forever be under my finger. As I left the room, I heard the sound of porcelain breaking. My guess is he threw his teacup, which was a shame as it was a pretty cup. After leaving Wandamere, I was now finally standing at the edge of the plateau, looking out over the road I was about to take. I turned back and looked at the houses that were off in the distance and gave a slight bow towards Cerelia village, until I am able to return once again. The path down the cliffside was not wide by no means, big enough for a merchant's carriage to make it up or down one way. If someone was coming down it, it would be impossible to pass each other safely. While it was a narrow path, from what I know, there has never been a single accident. That was because once a year or after big storms, people will come out and test the path to make sure it was safe to travel. Loose rocks will be removed off the cliffside if they look like they would cause a landslide. Such jobs were easy to do with earth magic. The path itself zigzagged down the side of the cliff, making it longer than it needed, but in return, it made it safer. Now, I could have easily just jumped off and slowly landed on the ground, but this was not why I was leaving so early. I wanted to enjoy my journey. I wanted to take my time and see the sights as I made my way towards the capital. 20 minutes is what it took to reach the bottom. From here, it was a long dirt road. While there were many small towns and villages along the way, I did not know if I would stop at any of them, as, well, I am a demi-human. There is no telling how much I will be hated. I just hope the capital is not as biased. It seemed the knights that I met were perfectly fine with me, but they could have been handpicked. Only the snickering young knight was a bit of a headache, but that was for all different reasons. Speaking of the capital, I hoped Adele would calm down by the time I entered the academy. Her gaze kind of freaked me out. Well, maybe more uncomfortable than freaked out, but that possibly could be contributed to her being overly excited. Luckily, though, she did not seem too into my father as I had thought. I did not know how I would have handled the whole mistress appearing out of nowhere cliché. I mean, I might have had to roast a girl. She seemed only my age, so having to roast such a young girl did not sit right for me. But to keep my family happy, I would have to close my eyes, grit my teeth, and puff out a bit of fire. As I walked down the road, I hummed a song. Nothing more than something I made up that has no words and was probably really out of tune. On Earth, I listened to very little music as I was always studying or reading, so there was no way I would ever remember any songs from my past life. I will say this, though, the sky was a clear blue with only a few clouds off in the distance. The birds flew in flocks across the meadow. The ugly man standing in front of me with a sword in his hand, pointing it at me with a lustful gaze, was also very peace. It seems I might be in a little bit of pickle. I had read about it in books and have fantasized about fighting them myself, but never in my life would I ever think I would ever run across bandits in my entire life. Real live bandits. There were 10 in total from the looks of it. Some wore bandanas while others did not. There was even the bald, scared bandit standing in the front who looked more muscular than the rest. My guess was that he was the leader. I touched my finger to my chin to decide how I should deal with this situation. I had quite a few choices to choose from. There was the heroic act where I gallantly tell the bandits, "Stand down, scum. I will not let you stain these lands. Either give up or die." Then there was the whole frail maiden act. "Bandits, please don't hurt me. I will be good and hand over all my goods." I could even do the seductress act and try to seduce them, but I looked down at my body and sighed. I guess that one will have to stay on the shelf. Not that I could even ever do such a dirty thing. I have read stories where girls would try to save their lives by giving themselves up, but for me, no. A big fat no. I would rather fight to the death. I could act like I was one of them and call them old buddy. They look stupid enough, but I do not think that would work either. I only had two options left. The first was to ignore them completely and continue on my way, or the second one, which was to just say nothing at all and kill them. To be honest, I would prefer not to kill anyone. The last thing I want is my ancient will popping up out of nowhere. So I guess I will just ignore them. But who would have thought that the bandits would not let me pass? Little lady, it is not your lucky day. Hand over all your valuables and come with us. We will make sure to find you a really good home for a few silver coins, of course. Hearing the bald-headed bandit make such a command made me stop my steps. I turned and glared coldly at the bald man. Are you sick? Huh? No, I feel okay. I guess the bald bandit was caught off guard by my question because he truthfully answered me. Then why are you stopping a little girl? Only sick people would do such a thing. Humph. Now, if you'll excuse me. I snorted and turned around. I once again began to walk by the bandits, who were all standing there in a daze. But once I did pass them, something came to mind. Bandits steal and hoard treasure. If they have treasure, that means I can steal from them and keep it for myself without feeling guilty. It would be impossible to ever trace back who the treasure belongs to unless it was marked in some way. I tapped my chin and turned around once more, causing my hair to flutter out and behind me. Is there something else? The bald bandit seemed to have lost all interest in me. I guess my words got through to him. Yes, actually, since I was going to do this, I should make myself sound righteous, right? I parted my legs so they were spread out a little, stuck a hand on my hip, and pointed at the bald man in front of me. How dare you bandits try to rob innocent people? I will make you surrender to me today. Dash. Look, little lady, we do not want anything more to do with you. So please just run aloe. Oof. My foot cut the bald man off as I planted it firmly on his face. Using that same face as a springboard, I jumped high into the air and spun my body around. Using my tail as a whip, I smacked 4 more bandits in the face, sending them flying. What the hell is this Demi? Why is she so strong? I heard a bandit yell, which I quickly shut him up by landing on his head and shoving it into the dirt. In under a minute, I had all 10 men on the ground, rolling around in pain. I walked over to the bald-headed bandit and lifted him up and slapped his face. Take me to where you keep your loot. What? I watched as the bald-headed bandit's eyes opened wide in surprise. I guess he only now realized what my true intentions were. But of course, I would not miss this chance to slap him again, so I did. I said, take me to where you keep the loot. Or do I need to slap you until you understand? I once again raised my hand only for the bald-haired bandit to quickly raise his hands in front of his face. Wait, I will. Good. I nodded my head in approval before dropping the man to the ground and waving my hand. Magic Hand. Magic Hand was a magic spell that created hands out of magic and allowed you to use them to grab solid objects. Since I really did not wish to touch these bandits, I was using the spell to pat them down and toss their weapons and other useful items into my inventory. If anything, I could use them later for something. What that something was I did not know yet. Within 10 minutes, I had a train of bandits being led by a rope chained together by their wrists behind me and one bald one in front of me. My sword was pointing at his back as I made him lead me to his hideout. You better not be leading me to a small stash. I can just use detection magic to find the rest. Miss, I would never. I heard the bald-headed man yell. I could see the sweat dripping off his bald head. I think he was truly worried about dying. Sadly for him, not only will I steal all of his money for myself, but I will also turn them in for the bounty. From what I know, any bandits that you turn in will allow you to earn a silver or 2 per head. Even if they were only worth a few copper coins, that was still a few copper coins. Much more than I had before. I might sound cheap, but so what? Money is money. I don't even have much except the few silver my father gave me. So, in a way, I was kind of lucky these nice bandits were so willing to give me their loot. We walked deep into the forest to a small ground cave that looked to be dug out using earth magic. I know this because of how smooth the walls were. Before entering, I used earth magic to bury the 9 other bandits up to their heads so that they couldn't try anything funny. Then I had the bald-headed bandit lead me to the treasure. You must have a lot of loot, right? Miss, I do not know what you expect from us small-time bandits, but we do not have much. For some reason, just from hearing the tone of the bald-headed bandit's voice, I felt like maybe he was telling the truth. But I must have faith. Just like my name, I must have faith that this baldy was lying. Sadly, dreams and reality can come crashing down quickly. What is this? I asked as I stared at the half-full treasure chest that looked to be full of junk. While there was a lot of silver, maybe a few gold worth, it wasn't really as much as I was hoping for. Not to mention there was nothing really shiny in there either. I mean, there was that anime. What was it called? Oh, right, Players. It had a main character named Mina in verse. She would always yell, "Fireball!" and blow up bandits while stealing all their loot. It was one of the few shows I liked to watch in my past life on Earth. But sadly, the big stash of treasure was nothing more than a half-filled box. I sighed and looked at the bald-headed man with a bit of pity. Must be rough being a crappy bandit. I mean, you go out and rob people, and all you get is this? What about the money from all the women you sold off? Are you sure you're not hiding another treasure trove somewhere? Detection. I swear this is all we have. Miss, I do not know what your idea of a bandit is, but this is actually quite good for bandits. I can even proudly say we are one of the richest bandit groups around. I couldn't help but let my mouth drop open. Were bandits really this bad? I was in serious shock. If I had known this, I would have just kept walking. What was the point? Such a waste of time for a few gold at most. I pursed my lips and waved my hand, sending the whole half-full treasure chest that was only like 4 feet by 2 feet in length and width. I mean, it only stood about 3 feet off the ground. It was a sad little treasure chest. In my past life, I had a chest at the end of my bed that was bigger than this thing and fuller too. It might not have been good stuff, but at least it was full. After not detecting anything but a bunch of dirty rooms, I sighed and poked the bald-headed bandit with my sword. Come on, we are going to the next town. What? I turned to look at the bald-headed bandit that was looking at me in confusion. What did he mean by what? Did this fool really think I was going to let them run free? They were worth money. What? I said, let's go. We're going to the next town. How can I turn you in if I don't bring you back? I poked the bald-headed bandit once more with my sword, making him walk forward. He could only lower his head and accept his fate. What I did not take into account was that the next town would be so far away. It will take a while. I sighed and looked at the train of bandits behind me. I guess no matter which world you live on, making money will always be hard. Miss, can you not just let us go? Wouldn't it be a hassle to drag us with you all the way to the next town? I heard the bald-headed bandit ask. I turned and looked at him and snorted. I'm going that way anyway, so why would it be troublesome? Can you not whine? It gives me a headache, and I might accidentally stab you with my sword. You know, my father always told me to be careful when I was around other people, as I have a strange twitch. The village doctor called it the stabby syndrome. I sometimes will randomly stab out with my sword using my full force, twist it, and then pull out. I accidentally did it to a mean kid once, and he lost his legs and arms. And then another time, I watched as the more I spoke, the paler the bandits' faces became. For some reason, I found it interesting, so I kept making up stories as I pulled them along. If anything, it served as entertainment to me. I was not sure if this was considered physiological torture or not, but it served as a good way of making them all shut up. Now they no longer whined about anything. Night set in after making quite a bit of ground. The bandits were currently nice and warm in their holes with their heads sticking out. Since it looked like it was going to rain, I even put some big leaves over their heads. Whether it would protect them or not is another story. Mississippi, can we talk about this? The bald-headed bandit seemed to not like my little setup. Huh. I turned, and with a furrowed brow, I unsheathed my sword and began walking over to him. For some reason, his face paled, and he began sweating. Wait, never mind. The temperature is just right. I think I can sleep wonderfully tonight. Oh, then I'm glad all my hard work was not in vain. I could have sworn you were about to complain. I gave him a blossoming smile that would warm anyone's heart. But I'm sure to him, it was as if he was looking at a devil. I mean, I had the horns for it. Why would I complain when you have gone out of your way? Look at the pretty leaf. It is perfect to keep the weather off my face. I thank you kindly. The bandit grinned, showing me a toothy smile. Then I will be off to find us dinner. Sadly, I still had to feed the bandits. I get more money for them being alive from what I know. Bandits that are kept alive can be used for prison labor, also known as another form of slavery, but only for those who commit crimes. This did not discriminate on race or even gender. If you committed a crime that was not worthy of death, instead of sitting around inside some cell someplace mooching off the taxes of the people, you were sent to do hard labor, mining and other jobs that would require a lot of people. The kingdom ensured a roof over their head and 2 meals a day, but they worked from sunup to sundown. While I personally think this is the proper way to handle prisoners, I am sure some human rights activists on Earth would have screamed unfairness. At any rate, having them buried up to their heads means they will not do anything stupid. I even solidified the ground, so they were basically frozen in time except for their heads. I was about to head off into the woods nearby when I stopped and thought for a moment. All right, if you have to go to the bathroom, do it now, because we will not be stopping for you to do your thing on the road. I also did not wish to see anything I shouldn't, since they would all need to be near me while they went. At least this way, I can spray them with water until they don't stink anymore afterwards. But now, with this reminder out of the way, I put up a circle of rock dirt around their heads before I walked into the forest to try to find a place to eat. I was not going to share my food with them. Of course, I would find them some food, but it will probably be some leaves from a tree, just enough to keep them alive until we make it to the next village. As for the circle of dirt, it was fortified with a protection spell so no one could break through it. I couldn't have people stealing my payday now, could I? I quickly found a good spot for a campfire and gathered a bunch of rocks and sticks. Once it was set up, I tossed a small puff of my dragon breath on it to light it on fire. Dragon breath was indeed handy. I wish I could use it in front of others. But if I did, I could be giving away the fact that I was actually a dragon. Then I would be in for all kinds of problems. But now, with the fire lit, I could begin roasting a monster chickig. A chickig tasted like chicken and bacon merged together. It is to die for if you add a bit of Salvani spice. This kind of spice was not something you would find on Earth. At least, it was not something I had ever tasted before. It was a peppery, spicy taste, but had a refreshing aftertaste. It is very hard to describe. But by sprinkling some of this on and rubbing it into the meat, then roasting it over the fire slowly, it was to die for. My mother would get mad at me and my father for eating out in the woods at night. I sat and watched the flickering of the flame. Besides the bandits I have following me around, this was actually my first time being alone outside at night. In a way, it was kind of exciting while at the same time a little lonely. I had always been with others, so this was really different for me. Even in my past life, I had always had someone around. I sat back and looked up at the cloudy skies above and sighed. I can't even see the stars. It would be fine if I could gaze at the stars just a little bit, but the threat of incoming rain ruins my mood. Makes me feel dreary and lazy. No sooner than when I thought this, I felt a drop of rain fall on my head. I pursed my lips and waved my hand, creating a protective dome over the area so I could eat in peace. Now that I think about it, those guys may drown. Detection. I sent out my vision over to where the heads were sticking up out of the ground and waved my hand once more, creating a protective dome around them. That should keep them from dying. With nothing better to do, I began drawing in the dirt while I waited for my chickig to cook. It was a thick thigh leg, so it took a while, almost 30 minutes, until it was finally roasted just right. I happily took it off the fire and bit into it. It smelt and tasted so good, I even had drool running down my chin. Not bad for my first time, but still, it is not as good as father's. I still have a long way to go, I guess. As I ate, my right ear twitched. I heard a cracking sound coming from a forest. I still ignored it, as nothing could get through my barrier unless it was someone powerful. So I kept munching on my chickig thigh leg. Not long after, I watched as a group of monsters I had never seen before came out of the forest. There were at least 30 in total. Each one was about half my height and had bodies shaped like a lion, but with thick scales on their back and long, narrow heads that had a strange-looking mouth. I watched as one in front of me opened its mouth, which split its head into 3 sections, revealing rows upon rows of razor-sharp teeth. Oh, a nurdle. I saw pictures of them in that book. It didn't dawn on me until their heads split. It was a unique feature to the nurdles. They were creatures that could eat anything. I mean anything. The nurdles were also large pack hunters. They never had fewer than 100 in their pack at all times, which meant that there were many more that had yet to show themselves. They were also very smart, so to fight them, you would need to be overly powerful and smarter than them. I just so happen to fit both categories. If I'm not wrong, aren't their hides worth a lot of money? I kept thinking about it, trying to remember where I got this information from. I then remembered a conversation I had with one of the merchants. He said the hide of a normal-sized nurdle, if in perfect condition, would go for around 20 silver, more if it was bigger. I rubbed my hands together. I mean, this was a lot of money in front of me. I just had to kill them without damaging their hide. This meant stabbing them through the mouth or casting a spell down their throats. This was why it cost so much for a single perfect hide. The way to kill it was to get up close and personal with it. For me, this was no problem. At least I hoped. But first thing is first, I need to finish dinner. I can't fight on an empty stomach, right? It also seems that my chickig might be what attracted them here, which made things better. Since they were so smart, I could use this to anger them and make them stick around until I was done. So I started to eat my chickig with gusto while making all kinds of smacking sound with my lips. So good. MMMM. Oh wow. So tender. Yes, this is right. If anyone were to walk by at this time and heard my words, they would think something naughty was going on. But I swear I'm only eating my chickig. Luckily, my noises did seem to anger them because the nurdles were charging in my barrier, trying to break in. It was just when I was about to finish eating when it happened. How dare you attack a fair maiden? Yes, I watched as a young man in knight's armor jumped from only God knows where, landed next to my barrier, and began slashing his sword and firing magic at the nurdles. Yes, he was just slashing away, cutting them up into bits and pieces. Yes, the 20 silver apiece hides were being ruined right in front of my eyes. I could feel the money slipping away. You damn idiot. Stop. Stop attacking. No, you're ruining it. My 20 silver. Why is this idiot here? Why is he ruining my money? This is all I could think as I did away with my barrier. And instead of going to kill nurdles, I went at the stupid idiot. Wait, miss. Why are you attacking me? Because you're a damn idiot.